Good evening. This is the Selectmen's meeting, Town of Gulfstown, for June 18th, 2012. First order is our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to review the minutes of 11 June. This includes the public minutes plus one session of non-public.
Motion to accept both public and non-public, if that's okay. I can separate if somebody has any issues.
I'll second that.
Need for any corrections, or? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 5-0. Move into announcements. Item 2. You have the
Second
usual.
update?
You start with the usual.
I certainly do. An update on the Mass Road Drainage Project. As of Friday of last week, they installed a 6-inch water service to Fire Station 19. It took about 2 days to accomplish that work. We also removed asphalt in preparation for the curbing to Dennis Park. Prepped and graded driveway aprons on the opposite side of Mass Road for the road widening in that area. They removed ledge for the road widening. Installed a drop inlet into catch basin 44. Installed the catch basin and stub for a drain at 464 Mass Road to address ongoing water issues. The stub will be tied in next week. Remove the curbing at Century 21 building in preparation for the new roadway layout and curbing. Also prepped the area for paving and resetting of the curbs. Paved trenches at 464 Mast and Fire Station 19. Paved the road widening section, and as well as the pavement in the majority of the sidewalk areas. They're going to return early this week to finish the 2 to 3 small sections that still remain in and around Fire Station 19. And the curb installers are on track to accomplish that on Tuesday, tomorrow of this week. Thank you.
Lots of individual tasks accomplished on that project last week. I have 2 traffic alert announcements, and both are related to the Pine Ridge Street drainage project. And the drainage construction is to start on Wednesday this week, 20th of June. It's expected to last the remainder of June, all of July, and possibly till late August. It involves the streets of Pine Ridge, East Union, South Mast. There's a construction schedule posted online showing the approximate days the roads will be affected, and if there is necessary for road closures, there'll be detours posted on the town's website and through local media sources. This notice, project updates and plans are posted on the town's website, and you would find that under Department of Public Works, their construction projects, and specifically the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act projects. And our Assistant Town Engineer, Alex Kanan, is available to answer questions. actually, there's a second announcement, but it's related to the same project, and that's East Union. As the drainage from Pine Ridge is extended down that street and then across South Mast, it will reach East Union Street. So during the period from Thursday, June 21st to at least June 29th of this month, East Union will be closed during the day, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. The location of that closure is between the truck center on East Union Street and where East Union enters South Mast. It's a 300 or 400 yard stretch. Any other announcements from board members? Yes, Selectman
I
Devanza.
just wanted to bring up the fact that I received several comments that were very positive about the new sign that was furnished by the Goffstown Police Association, and they thought it was very nice. As a matter of fact, somebody asked me if I made the sign, and I said, no, I did not make the sign. I will relay to the person who made the sign your thoughts about it. So, and I just wanted to also let everybody be aware that that was not paid for out of the police budget and nothing to do with town funds. It was paid for by the Goffstown Police Association.
And it is electronically controlled from inside the station. It, if there's no message, it will show you the temperature and the
Time.
date and time. Yes.
Just one announcement is that this Saturday will be Parks and Recreation and the Goffstown Lions Club are sponsoring a free concert at the Goffstown High School softball field. That will start at 6:30 p.m., last till about 8:30. There will be concession stand will be open, so bring your lawn chairs or picnic blankets. It should be a good time. If for some reason rain is in the forecast, there'll be a rain date to be determined. But again, after last year's 250th celebration, both Parks and Rec and Lions Club wanted to sponsor a couple of free concerts, so that's what we're doing. And it is a pop/rock band.
What time is
And
that
I don't know if
again?
you'll hear it from your house, Collis, but
And the starting time?
you might.
Repeat the starting time again.
6:30 p.m.
Arrive early to find a seat.
Or patch of grass. Right. Yeah. And on that same vein, you talk about the I think donations. There's a really lovely bike rack outside of Apotheca. Two of them now, right?
But
And,
one's on Depot Street at the Apotheca, and the other one's in front of the Park and Rec building, near their parking lot. They were built with a donation, really built at the high school. And the materials, the purchase of the materials were donated by the Rotary Club.
yeah, they're really nice.
We also,
They have on the sides are cut from steel, is the words Golfstown and a image of a bicycle,
nice.
outline of a bicycle.
I'd love to get one of those at town hall.
Well, high
Donate the
school might be in
materials.
business of making them.
Yeah.
Today we've received a phone call from a Mr. Raymond Lord, 464 Mass Road, and he says he has lived in Goffstown for 22 years and wanted to express his appreciation for the construction work being done by DPW in front of his property. He said everyone involved with the project, from the civil engineer on down, had gone above and beyond to help address where his driveway intersects with the road. He was very pleased with their work. And Brian Ray and his wife Nicole are the proud parents of baby girl today.
Excellent.
Oh, great.
Congratulations.
Now's the time for public comment, and we would be hearing members of the public for issues they wish to discuss before the board. There are no members of the public here this evening, so we'll, perhaps there's another opportunity. It's not on the 7:30, wasn't on the announcement, Sue, this evening, but
That's right.
yes. We'll,
Yeah,
yes,
come on in.
It
come on
is.
in. here for an agenda item or public? Yes. Okay, because we had just reviewed public comment, and there weren't any members of the public here. The 6:30 item, which pertains to public services to certain churches and private schools, that will start at 6:30. So we'll move on into our next item. Does Mr. Lieutenant Connor want to do his at 7 o'clock as scheduled?
Yes, I think others will be with him.
With the grant applications, they probably do that, right?
Same for you, Chief? 7:20 or when thereabouts?
I can fit in my grant applications anytime you'd like.
Would you like to do it early?
Absolutely.
We're on item 6 for the board's packet.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chief.
Thanks for taking me early. Once again, the Department of Homeland Security has opened up the application process for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. This year, it's a competitive grant program for all fire departments within the United States to purchase equipment, training, materials, vehicles, and certain apparatus. With that said, there's approximately $285 million available this year in the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. Tonight, I'm coming before the board to request approval of the board to go ahead and apply for several projects that are very applicable to this program, and I feel that they'll benefit the community. The first one I'll be requesting is once again to apply for a new forestry vehicle. This is to replace the 1968 Jeep military cargo vehicle that we've retrofitted to become a forestry vehicle. I've been told by a certain mechanic at DPW that he says, please don't make me put another sticker on this type of speech, because he feels that it's not roadworthy anymore, and I truly believe his judgment is correct. To replace it,
That it needs antique plates now, or is that?
it qualifies for antique plates. It's an antique vehicle, but by no means I feel it's a safe vehicle for over-the-road traffic. It does not have a roof to it. It has a cloth canvas top to it, and also we have fashioned, or we have made seat belts for the operators and the passenger in it. It's not the safest vehicle, but it's very good at what it does, but we do need a forestry vehicle. What I'm presenting in this particular project is to replace the vehicle with a forestry vehicle, or what they call is a quick attack vehicle. This vehicle is not only useful during brush fire season, or this time of year, but it's also available to be used year-round, because it's full drive capabilities and the fact that it has a pump on it and some water. It's something that we feel that could be used year-round here, especially in adverse conditions. Like, for example, given the snowstorm back in October, Selectman LeMay could attest that we get several of our fire apparatus stuck that night.
We sure did, Chief.
And it really impeded on our ability to respond effectively, versus a vehicle like this would be perfect for that application. So in this particular case, I'd like to apply for a $120,000 grant under the AFG program for a quick attack brush vehicle. This goes along with a 5% community match, which would be $6,000. I estimate that they will begin awarding these grants, if successful, in September or October, and we will know by the end of the year. Which is helpful for us, because when it comes to budgeting for next year, we'll know whether it needs to be on our radar or not. Again, it's competitive, and if we're successful, we'll be very lucky. But I feel it's worth a shot.
Let's take up that one issue right now.
Yeah, I had a question pertaining to
Selectman
that. I noticed further down that one of these is a regional grant application. Would there be any reason why the forestry vehicle might not also be a regional application, in the sense that I would think, you know, 2 or 3 towns could use a forestry vehicle and maybe wouldn't have the capacity to pay, you know, each town to have their own?
I think that's a great idea. Unfortunately, the rules, when they came out this in June, the rule says we couldn't do that.
Okay.
Apparently, it was exhausted several times in the past years. Now, they're concentrating their goal, apparently, in the grant to focus on if you're gonna get apparatuses to fulfill the local need or the one department's need, and not a community or a regional grant.
Another question?
Is there a, how much weight is given towards the age of the current equipment?
There's a combination of factors that go into it. Obviously, is the age of the vehicle, the average age of the fleet, and the cost, or cost-benefit analysis, they call it. And so, for example, if you're a community that had very little open land, we're not gonna get this truck. But the fact that probably 57% of our land in Goffstown is covered by trees, or we call, you know, the rural effect, we have a good shot at this.
Okay.
Question?
Yes, the selectman.
If we were to get this one, what would we do with the existing truck?
The existing truck would have to be decommissioned and retired under the grant rules.
So we'd auction it off, or whatever we're gonna do with
Maybe
it, surplus it somehow?
Yeah, I would probably look at a surplus auction. I just threw out to a couple of vendors if they'd be interested, and they shook their head wildly and said, no, thank you.
A museum it can go into.
Yeah.
Are these prioritized in any way, and does Homeland Security look at the priority of these as communities
They look,
submit these grant applications?
they look at, they prioritize items in regards to, they classify communities as whether they're rural, suburban, or urban. And we're in the rural category, although we have some suburban flair towards certain areas of town. But in general, they look at Goffstown as being an urban location. So having a vehicle like this, it bumps it up in the priority list, versus if say, the city of Nashua tried to get one of these, they would get bumped probably as a lesser priority. So this vehicle matches with the grants guidance.
But as far as priorities within our community, for instance, if they didn't have $120,000 to give to Goffstown, would they drop down to the cardiac monitor?
No, what happens is, in this particular case, we'll be requesting 3 separate applications. So you could be successful in one and fail the others.
Okay.
In one doesn't impact the other.
Okay.
So
So they're standalone?
Yeah, we're standalone, and that's what happened this past year. We went for the forestry, and we went for the fire sprinkler and the vehicle exhaust removal system. We're successful with the exhaust removal system in the sprinklers, but the forestry failed. So
Okay.
we'd like to go after the forestry again.
Chief,
Thank
does this application for this forestry truck differ from the last one we submitted?
It does. What happens whenever I'm not successful in a grant, I always try to find out and get feedback from FEMA in the Department of Homeland Security on where we might have went wrong in it. And with some of the feedback they were able to give us, I think we'll have a different approach and hopefully be better or more successful in this one.
Move on to your grant number 2.
Number two is a new cardiac monitor defibrillator for $33,000. And again, this is one of the newer categories under this grant where they're allowing for grant applications for EMS equipment. And that opened up a couple of years ago, and it was a good sign. In our particular case, since we now operate from 3 ambulances, the two frontline ambulances currently have, we call it the Life Pack 12. In fact, one of them was donated by CMC. And the third truck has 11-year-old Zoll cardiac monitor. It's old technology, and it seems like whenever we send it out for preventative maintenance, it costs us about $2,000 in repairs because the parts are just wearing out, are just sitting in the truck, even with minimal use. So we feel it's well beyond its life, so it's another good candidate to move ahead with an application for this. Again, with a 5% match on that, be $1,650. And if we're all set, we'll go to number 3. Number 3 is for a this is gonna be a regional request. We would be the host application for the project. And this is a regional request where we're gonna ask for a new fire EMS dispatch CAD system. The program would include the software, the hardware necessary, and also the mobile component to tie it all in with our fire trucks and emergency apparatus out there. And we're calling this a regional system because the Goffstown dispatch dispatches for not only Goffstown, but it dispatches for Ware Fire and New Boston Fire. And we thought that having a CAD system would improve the time it takes for the dispatchers to receive call data and call information from 911 or somebody calling for an emergency, and getting the information quicker on a system that's designed exactly for that. It's a fire EMS CAD program where it's gonna tell them immediately who to send, where it is, and possibly where the closest water source is, whether it be a fire hydrant or even a pond, in case of a fire. It also will key in any hazards that are on site. So that's the dispatch component of it. Again, the lion's share of the software component probably costs about $65,000. Then you're talking the hardware alone, working with Brian Ray on that and finding out what he needs to make the system work, is another about $75,000. So the lion's share of this project is definitely the hardware. The hardware includes 2 workstations. You have the dispatchers that work there, and also we have the redundant file storage and servers, and the virtualization for the synchronization of all the data that goes along. And then the last component of it is something that the other fire departments thought would be very helpful, including us, would be a mobile, or we call it tablet CAD interface. Seems like everything today is going from laptop to CAD, to a tablet, whether it be an Android base or an iPad. Seems you get data quicker through the cloud system, and now there's services available for fire departments to integrate with the CAD software and to draw down the call data where it's located, and also kind of act as a Garmin to show you where you are in retrospect to the call, and where the other pieces of apparatus that are signing on to this call, where they are in retrospect to the call also. So you can tell who's going to be there first, and or who's coming to the scene next. Also, it'll show you right on the tablet where your next hydrant is. Also, if there's any hazards. Another interesting component to this would also include, we call it pre-plan surveys. So we'll be able to go into facilities, say Town Hall, and do a pre-plan survey to determine where the gas shutoffs are, electrical shutoffs, anything that's hazardous in the building, and then it's going to be stored in the system. So when we arrive at a location, we'll be able to bring that data up and tell our crews to stay away from a certain area of the building if that's the case. So the total project for this is $172,863. Now with the match contribution, it changes a little bit because we have to add in all the population of the 2 other towns, which bumps up the grant match to 10%, which is now the community match would be $17,286.30. Speaking with the other fire chiefs in the other communities, they support this. And in fact, they said, well, just, if we're successful, just bill us in our dispatch fee. And they said they thought that was the easiest way to go. And I said that probably could be achieved with a board vote.
I'll start off the questions. Where would the hardware reside?
The hardware would have to reside at dispatch. And although it would say fire department property on it, we would have to maintain that property for the life of the
You said 2 workstations. Space already seems crowded.
It would, the
Where would
workstations
they-
would replace the existing ones. Okay?
Other questions?
Yes, Chief, you mentioned about the other 2 communities saying to build them. But the question is, this 10% is based on population. Are we going to break that down according to population and build the other communities according to population?
We could figure that out when the time comes. We could determine whether it's a population base or a user base. We could come to a consensus on that.
Okay, and just as a follow-up though on that, are they, when they say that, are they anticipating a lump sum fee of this amount, or are they for what it is?
They would anticipate a lump sum fee because the hardware and the software will be purchased outright.
Right.
And they would anticipate that Goffstown would have to fund, you would have to come up with the money.
Right, reason why I'm saying it, because usually the other communities, whenever we do console upgrades, each community gets billed, so this would be treated in that same
Correct.
regard. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Selectman Gross?
A couple of months ago, we talked about this particular grant, and you mentioned that there may be an opportunity to leverage this particular system with police dispatch or maybe hardware that could be used. Is that still
Well,
a possibility?
As far as the grant goes, I'm officially telling you it's for
not.
fire department.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying in terms of if we
But-
were to expand off of what we currently have,
If we were to somehow, if the police somehow wanted to purchase the IMC police software, it would be integrated very well into the system.
okay.
Nope, I'm all set.
How does the board want to tackle a motion on the?
I'll make a
grant amounts?
motion that we approve the fire chief's request to apply for these 3 grant applications as he's described.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's 5-0. Kathy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
At 6:30, we're scheduled to have our agenda item is public services provided for certain churches and a private school. I noticed most of you are gathered here now, so we'll proceed right into our 6:30 agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
just want to make everybody aware that I am a member of St. Lawrence Parish. And prior, when the board addressed this last time, I was a member of St. Edmunds, which happened to be, at the time, it was in Manchester, not Goffstown.
Thank you. We asked for representatives of Gulfstown Congregational Church, Hillside United Methodist Church, St. Matthew's Episcopal Church, Gulfstown Christian Fellowship, St. Lawrence Church, and the Villa Augustina. If you're welcome, please, to join the best you can up front, so where the microphones are,
What we could do is take that other chair that's over there.
and there's an extra chair can be pulled up to the center.
Oh, please, come on up.
Yep, right up to the front.
Occupying,
This is the same thing you might have at the pews or something, where people don't want to sit close?
that's exactly right, nobody wants to sit in the front. Not even us, yeah.
And if, for the public viewing this session tonight, gentlemen, if you would introduce yourself, starting here, please.
Sure, I'm Reverend William Exner, I'm rector at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church, 7 North Mass Street.
Rob Dix, pastor of Goffstown Christian Fellowship, Henry Bridge Road.
Reverend Gerard Burton, pastor of St. Lawrence.
Andrew Maloney, the principal at the Bill Augustine.
Thank you, Andrew.
And Bob McKenney, the pastor at the Congregational Church of Goffstown.
And do we have anyone representing the Hillside United Methodists? Not this evening, okay.
Paul Null, St. Lawrence, maintenance and member of the parish council.
Thanks, Paul.
And Jerry Bergeron, pastoral associate, St. Mark's.
Feel free to sit up.
A resident requested just a few weeks back that the Board of Selectmen stop providing services to private organizations in town, and it's the reason why we asked you here this evening, because you're affected by that decision. Also, there's another type of public service, and that's trash pickup. And that was based on state law and interpretation of state law that is, as a general rule, a town cannot spend tax money for the benefit of private property, and your organizations are private property. And nevertheless, we've had a custom through many years of providing snow plowing services, and some of you take advantage of our trash, solid waste, and recycle pickup. We asked you here this evening because ultimately we'd like to make a decision, might not be this evening, but whether we're to continue with those services or discontinue with those services. Prior to making that decision, the board wanted to hear what you have as the benefits that you might be providing that would be of monetary value to the town. Services that the town might otherwise be obligated to take responsibility for, but you're stepping up to provide. If any of the other board members want to expand on that definition, I'll welcome you to speak on it. If I can clarify one other aspect, is we had legal advice that indicated that we could provide service to private activities, private properties, only if the service that we provide is subordinate and incidental to the town's own highway, and this concerns the plowing. Such that if we were to have to plow one public road, but the most efficient way to get to it was through a private road, then it would be incidental to the overall scope of plowing a public road. So that's the background of why we invited you gentlemen, reverends and pastors, here this evening. And I'd like to open up the agenda and hear your views and what comments you can provide to the board.
Okay, thanks.
One of you would like to start? Fine.
It certainly made a big difference at St. Lawrence Church, the plowing of our church parking lot. Like any organization, we struggle with financial issues, and we try to balance the budget. The savings to the church has been so significant for us that we've been able to lease our hall, to rent our hall for free for organizations. Our hall, our kitchen, our restrooms, heat and electricity to a number of organizations. I'd asked my secretary to type up the organizations. I've got them all listed here. I don't know if you want me to go through them. But St. Lawrence has been able to provide that service to many members of the community and organizations because the difference that the savings has done in our budget. The American Red Cross blood drives uses our hall. This is all free now. The Boy Scouts use it. Crispin House uses it. The Goffstown Fire Department has a meeting there, a banquet there. The Goffstown Fire and Rescue Association, the Goffstown Library, the Goffstown Lions Club, the Goffstown Main Street Program, the Goffstown Police Department, the Goffstown Public Works, the Rotary Club auction, the Goffstown School District. They have advanced placement testing at our facility. The Goffstown Volleyball Program, the Goffstown Youth Football Program, the Greater Goffstown Community Center, the Knights of Columbus, the Lifeline Screening of America, the Piscataquag Land Conservatory has used it, Southern New Hampshire Services, the WIC program, the United States Department of Commerce Census Testing has used it. So there's been a lot of usage of our parish hall, our facilities, our kitchen, our restrooms. We cover the cost for heating and lighting, and the service maintenance and janitorial services were provided by us. Setting up, organizing has been provided by our maintenance man, basically Paul Nault. And there's been a beautiful spirit of collaboration in the last 5 years that I've been a pastor at St. Lawrence. You've helped us out, and we in turn have been able to extend hospitality as we hosted our facilities to members of the community. And there's always been that beautiful, the spirit of the law, I think, has been more in vogue than the letter of the law. We just helped each other out. And that plowing of the parking lot has been a significant savings for us to allow us to do all this for free for the community.
Pastor Burton, you mentioned a lot of organizations that use your function hall, but early in your discussion, you said renting the hall out.
No, not renting.
Oh.
That was a mistake.
Okay,
Yeah, they're using the facility, not renting it. There's no charge.
thank you for the clarification. Yes, Paul?
I might also add that, and I don't remember if Father Jerry mentioned this, the use of our parking facilities as well for the many functions that the town provides.
Big time.
And this is because of activities on Main Street in the town.
That's correct.
Potentially, there could be overflow parking that is, takes advantage of your large parking lot.
Yes.
I'm Andy Maloney, the principal at the Villa. I think we have a wonderful partnership with the town of Goffstown. I've only been principal there 2 years, but I can tell you every single one, in fact, Chief has been at our school a couple times, and when I moved in here a couple of years ago to take over this school that's been in your town almost 100 years, and has 110 to 120 Goffstown children there, and about 70 children from surrounding towns, which you bus there, and that's okay by title laws, because we share title grants together, because the federal government allows that. We get, I don't know if you know that or not, the federal law now has been changed. But I think the partnership is beyond that. You know, when that tanker truck tipped over this spring, up by Bartlett School, Stacy called me in the morning on the way into school and said we may have to start a process to evacuate. She kept me up to date every 15 minutes. Early this spring, the fire chief called me and said, we're supposed to do every year, we're supposed to do a trial thing on a 4-story building. We have a problem in Goffstown. You're the only 4-story building. I said, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've been wanting to get up on top of the roof there a little bit. I sent my custodian up. I decided not to go that day, but I said, whenever you need it, come in. 3 Girl Scout organizations use our building, and we do say on our form rent, but I've told everybody, the veterans, the town of Goffstown people, everybody, it's free, unless it's something they're gonna make a bundle of money on, and then we're willing to share a little bit of the take at the door. The Rotary Club runs their annual dinner at our hall. They've had it the last couple of years. I think it's Rotary Club. Stacy Buckley was the chairperson a couple of years in a row. is it at the fire department, the police department? We are the drop-off site for Bartlett School for children if there's an emergency, Homeland Security. The school is also, when Stacy calls me and says, there's an emergency in our area, the buses are already on the way, Andy, we're gonna pick up your kids. When we're working with students with different issues, when we work on grants, when we work on staff development stuff, the Goffstown school system, matter of fact, we just worked with them a couple of weeks ago to put in our new iPad lab that we got, and I called them up and said, who did you use as a vendor? And they got us a vendor that helps us save money, because it's really New Hampshire children. You know, they may be at the Villa Augustina, and they may be coming from 16, 17 different towns, but we're educating New Hampshire children at that building. And as a 35-year public school educator, I understand that very clearly, a history teacher, and understanding the spirit of how the law is written and how the spirit of the law is conducted. The spirit of the law is conducted, as you know, by the selectmen to make the choice they feel is best for the entire community. So when I look at this thing, you know, I've called the fire department, the police department, and believe it or not, we've had a few calls from the police department. Our children aren't all angels. And we've had a couple people that have showed up on the property. Seriously, I've called the police, and before I got out the front door and down the steps, a cruiser was pulling into the parking. Now, they take very good care of us because we're a member of your community. You know the value of the Villa Augustina in your community. We bring in a tremendous amount of people, and we also share, right? We do have all kinds of organizations. We had a young lady that was a Girl Scout that was trying to get her badge, one of the upper badges, and she had to do a service-oriented thing. We didn't charge her. She ran a basketball camp, again, in our school. So everybody pretty much knows that we're willing to be open to any function whatsoever in the town, because as a Christian school, we believe in sharing and collaboration, as Father said, with all the other community members. And I think it's been wonderful. I am very pleased that every person, town hall people I've called, have bent over backwards to work with us. And I think that's the real true sign of a good community, that people don't exclude, they include. And one last thing, if I may, a lot of the Goffstown children that don't go to the Goffstown school system, that come here, come on the Goffstown buses to our school. If you take the 110 or 115 children that are in our school, and they would decide to go back to the Goffstown school system, there's on about $2 million going back into your school. So cost savings, it may be something you look at. And I'm just throwing out all the information that I've looked at.
Any want to take up any of those discussion issues he mentioned or reinforce them?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. I appreciate you all showing up and sharing your thoughts with us. There's no doubt in my mind that all of our houses of worship provide valuable services to our community. They're an important part of the fabric of our community. I don't think anybody would debate that. However, the task at hand for us, as we've been challenged by this one individual, but certainly as it applies to all of the taxpayers and citizens of Goffstown, is to be able to show the dollar value of what you provide to us. So all this stuff is great, but when you mention we don't charge rent, what we're probably going to be looking for ultimately is a formula, a calculation that shows X number of events. We would have charged $25 or $50 per event. Here's the dollar value, because we can come up with a dollar value for the services: snow plowing, trash removal, recyclable collection. So eventually we're going to need to get down to that mathematical calculation. So I appreciate the insights, but it's going to eventually, at least in my opinion, come down to that specific exercise.
Yeah, if I might, then I'll take the first stab at sort of going from the heavenly concept of community to the more temporal things that you're referring to. And first of all, I know it's you're in a rather difficult position, you know, and that's endemic of the times we live in, and I appreciate that. For the record, and I'm speaking only for St. Matthew's Church now, St. Matthew's has, for at least the last 27 years, had its own snow removal contract with a private contractor, okay? We're not reliant on the town for our plowing. The town has just been great, as you've said, because we've got a horseshoe in the middle of town, and when there's a really big storm, they'll just blow right through the driveway, you know, and they just do that for us, and it's a great thing. And it has a lot to do with public safety as well. which I'll get to in a second. So St. Matthew's doesn't have an economic, in terms of our own viability in this. I think it's more on the moral side, but I've got some figures for you. The Network Food Pantry, as you know, is housed at 7 North Mast, which is the parish house of St. Matthew's. Over 170 local household benefit directly, households, not individuals, but households. A lot of people benefit directly from Network, which we all take part in. And that is open 102 times a year. Last year alone, it spent $11,000 on dairy products, $35,000 on food from the New Hampshire Food Bank, and that's at 8 cents a pound, okay? You can't do better than that. That was needed to purchase and round out the donated inventories where there were holes, plus $10,000 for the holiday program, which, by the way, Father Jerry's parish hosts every year. We logged $48,998.29 worth of volunteer hours on site. That's at the Financial Accounting Standards Bureau's volunteer rate for New Hampshire, okay? And I think you have that in the document that I passed around to you. That does not take into account the hours of the scouts, the schools, the church volunteers, the facilities, the utilities, the administrative time of the local churches. And note also that if that food that was purchased for $35,000 at 8 cents a pound from the food bank was not available and accessible to our neighbors, and they had to go to our town welfare office, okay? And they'd get cash vouchers to go to Sully's or any place else, that would have cost almost $200,000. The equivalent, that much food. That's just 7 North Mass. The 9 North Mass building, the community clothing center, is open 3 days a week for residents to purchase good, clean experience clothing at 1/4 the rate of the Salvation Army, okay? And we give it away when people are in crisis. Nobody's there to make any money. There's no money being made there. A percentage of those proceeds goes directly to the Goffstown Clergy Association every quarter so that we can respond quietly and confidentially to our neighbors in real need. And we work with the SAU family liaison person. We work with the select board's representative at the welfare office. And we make sure that people are getting what they need. We get court referral juveniles and National Honor Society kids and volunteers from Crispin's house to help in those endeavors. Those volunteer hours were included in the number that I gave you a minute ago, which is almost $49,000. When a local family is hit with a crisis, they just get things for free. We're not there to make money. 3 North Mast to 7 North Mast, the church building, parish house at no cost. Alcoholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Scout Troops, play group for the community toddlers at no cost. The parish nursing program from CMC is there at no cost. A lot of our seniors get real good medical attention, and they can get into see doctors immediately, where usually if you picked up the phone it would be, well, we'll see you in 3 weeks, and that just can't work for people without health care. Destination Imagination Teams, the Daughters of the American Revolution meetings, we have many of those. Interest groups, New Hampshire Teen Institute programs, the Deployed Service Family Dinners, which we've all been collaborating on over the last 2.5 years. Senior citizens gather weekly there for a hospitality piece that has nothing to do with internal St. Matthew's Church ministries. None of what I've just mentioned has anything to do with any of that. That's all community, and that's what we're all about. We do these things together. The Main Street Association has occasional meetings there as well. So I can't speak for the other churches in town. They do a great job for themselves, but I'm also very happy about the cooperative dynamic that this church has had with Goffstown well, who knows, maybe it's since 1864, when we started. We also, I know also though, that according to C. Christine Fillmore's February 2010 brief, and I think you were referring to that earlier, municipalities have no legal right, but it says except under narrow circumstances, to plow private property. So I polled 28 other Episcopal churches and 47 other communities in New Hampshire over the last 2 weeks, and only two get any help from their towns, and that's too bad. But this makes me even prouder about where we live, to know that we have traditionally set a better example. So the bottom line, I think, is that the town, the community, certainly gets a lot more bang for the buck than any of our churches in this great relationship. of mutual support. The brief also states, though, that a select board has the power to designate any place plowable if there is a public safety concern involved. And I would maintain that local emergency food, clothing, crisis fund, referral availability is a matter of public safety, precisely when the weather is cold and threatening, and especially to our most vulnerable, neighbors. It's just how it is. For these reasons, and most especially for the sake of fostering that healthy example of cooperation and mutuality that we have, I would respectfully not tell you what to do, but pray that you would consider either tabling this matter or postponing it indefinitely, and just kind of maybe let the current climate simmer a little bit too, and see where we are. And that's my quantitative analysis as well.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
Any others?
Well, I could keep piling up all these stats as well.
Go, Bob, go.
Stark Hall, the Congregational Church has opened to community organizations pretty much all week long. Excuse me, in the evening as well is something that we don't charge for at all, but we make it available to about 70% of the organizations that Father Jerry mentioned. Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts on top of that. Numerous home school groups use it during the week. The Goffstown 250 used it. The library uses it for whenever there are activities that they don't have room for or they need extra space. We make it available to them and pretty much at a moment's notice. I guess I will say also for the record, since Bill mentioned it, that we also pay for our own snow plowing. We've had a contract for a number of years with someone that does that for us. We don't have a huge parking lot, as you know, so it's not as big a financial concern for us. But the church has, for 250 years, had a relationship with the town. So, and it's in every way that these two gentlemen have mentioned, very much the same way. Maybe one way in which our situation is a little different is that in the basement of our meeting house, we are renting out space. And yes, we are renting out space to a nursery school, and we do pay taxes on that to the town. So I'm not sure how that would affect us in terms of trash collection and so forth, but it maybe is a little bit of a twist there. And I'd be glad to provide, if you're looking for it, the names of all the organizations and an estimated cost, if that helps you. I think you'd be surprised at how much.
Any questions from the board?
No, I have a comment. The one thing that I think we glean from all of this is that I just want to make it clear from my own perspective is that religion has nothing to do with this. It's all about, for one, I am not a member of any of your faiths. However, I feel welcome in every single one of your facilities. I have been in St. Lawrence and St. Matt's, and I feel good about that. So even though I'm not one of your faith, I tremendously respect all that you do for the community. I don't think anybody asks anybody what religion they are if they are in need of food or clothing. It doesn't matter. And I think we really appreciate all that is done and the partnership that we have in Goffstown. And the fact that this came to us from a resident, I don't think has anything to do with that aspect of it. It's just a matter of, are we following the spirit of the law? And going back to what Selectman Adams stated, our charge is to determine, what are the benefits that you provide to the town of Goffstown in a quantifiable manner, i.e. dollars. What is the cost of providing the services, and is it legal to do that? So so from my perspective, all of the things that all of your churches or the schools perform are tremendous. I think, and they are the fabric of what makes Goffstown special. But the thing that I have to say, me personally, which I think is not an indictment on those other 47 towns, but when we polled our local towns, Sue did that for us. There was only a handful in the entire state that do that, and those were kind of narrow in the sense of it was a church whereby there was no parking lot, it was the church's parking lot, and there was a town hall, and they, in essence,
Shared parking.
they share the parking. So there were, and then there was another example where they, I think it was a roadway, where to get from point A to point B, they plow it, and so it was a little bit more, it was a lot different, or it seemed like it fell under the spirit of the law more so than what we have before us here, so.
And there were formal agreements.
And they were formal. And the one thing that I wanted to just state was that we have tried over the last, 4 or 5 years, and all of the, what we've been counseled is that it does have to be in writing. And we have, in the spirit of community, and I'll use Parks and Rec as a good example. Dave French had a lot of lean budget years. He was always the low man on the totem pole, and he did whatever he could to try to keep his programs going. And he traded seed for this, and he did all that he can. And I think over time, we try to be more transparent. So what we did is we then charged a fee, and in return, someone got use of a field or a gym space or the renting of a room, so that it was all upfront to know that, yes, you got charged $25 or $10 an hour for the room, and in return, the town got this. And I think that's probably what may have to happen if this is going to continue. We have to demonstrate that, one, is it a need that the town, is it a town's need? And secondly, is it quantifiable whereby we can, put $1 to it and then show that it costs X amount to, say, plow and take it from there. That's kind of what I got from our meeting with council.
Representing one of the organizations. Yes.
Jerry Bergeron, Pastoral Associates, St. Lawrence. If we're gonna be doing dollar to dollar as far as what you give us as opposed to what we give you, can we ask you what the cost is of plowing these facilities? What is the cost of the town for plowing this one time?
We don't have those figures tonight, but we reviewed them a few weeks back, and so I'm going to ask Sue DeRusero to forward those.
I believe it was $98 per snowstorm for plowing, for everyone but the villa, because there was more space at the villa, I think, to plow, and don't quote me, but I think it was like $149 for the villa per storm.
Okay.
That's per storm?
Per storm,
Per storm.
yes.
That would represent the value of the labor and equipment time from our Public Works Department. I believe the Director of Public Works also put a value on the solid waste pickup too, as part of that same memo.
Now you're really pushing my memory
Yeah,
if you
so
ask me for that one.
I didn't want to push the memory here this evening, but find that document and share it with the pastors and reverends here this evening.
As I just wanted, I've spoken with some of you. The other, monkey wrench that gets thrown into this is if there are other organizations in the town and other churches who do the same exact things as you've delineated, whether that be any of the churches in the Bernardville section of town, or it could even be someone like the Masonic Masons, or it could be the Odd Fellows, who also may give free use of their hall for the CERT team, or they they work with some of you on a toy drive,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger scope than just your 6 facilities. It's much bigger than that, because it also, we have to be able to then justify, does it fall into the scope of those other groups that do have the same mission, or also provide services to the town, and if they approach us, we have to be consistent in how we deal with them.
Just so you know, at the villa, we have a set rental fee for other people other than the town. So when a group comes in and rents the facilities based on the number of people, and what they're gonna use, we have a fee. And it's as high as $250 for a fee, so that, I can put those together and all the other ones and adjust it. We just haven't, we have a rental agreement because of our insurance policy, we have to have a rental agreement. But we've always wavered it, for the town functions. And about as you were talking, I just remember the American Legion in town.
Yeah.
They just asked us to rent it two times a month next year for the facility, and they said the reason they have to do it is they don't have a hall big enough to put it in town. So, and I, again, not just because I'm an American history teacher, but I really would hate, I don't wanna charge anybody for that and stuff like that. I really would like to be able to keep it to be free.
Mr. Maloney, you mentioned one point I want to re-emphasize, and that was that the buses, Goffstown Truck Center, I presume, delivering the students to your facility, that's really part of a bus route,
Yes,
because they'll continue from your facility and go to the public schools.
right.
So it's,
Yep.
that's an important thing in my viewpoint.
And
Yeah.
I would think that, and I appreciate with what Reverend Exner provided us in terms of, we do have the ability, under our discretion, where public safety is concerned. I mean, I think dropping students off on Mast Road is not in the best public safety of students or the commuting public, so.
Okay, Mr. Maloney, a lot of people associate your facility with the baseball fields.
Yes.
You
We have an
didn't
agreement.
mention anything related to that.
Well, because I really do wanna work with you. I mean, I understand the whole thing. I've been on boards and everything else, and I live in the town of Candia, which if you check that town, they do plow a lot of the facilities there. But again, that's the discretion of the selectmen, I believe. And again, you have to decide what's best for your town. Every town's different and stuff. There's and I don't know what year it's in, but there's like a 99-year clause with the athletic fields and all those athletic fields there with the nuns. I wasn't around when they first wrote it.
Phil might be, were you around?
I won't be around when it's ended, but the nuns had made the agreement with the town, and we're not gonna, at least from my point of view, we're not gonna mess around with that. But, down the road, we do have an agreement. I wasn't sure it was legal because of the age, so I didn't bring it in, but we do have an agreement written in 1986, agreement with the town about usage and stuff like that. I will try to dig it up again, but I thought since it wasn't a new law, and I know some of these laws are recent, I thought, well, 86, they probably don't work it, but there was an agreement with the town then, with the schools for mutual services.
Yeah, we have,
You have that letter?
we have
We have the waiver,
a waiver of municipal
Liability.
liability from 1980
that's different,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, 86, that's the year we,
Wasn't it?
No, that was more,
90s?
90, that was when
90s,
Carl came on.
90s.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
completely different document
Yeah.
than what he's
Yeah.
talking about.
but
I
there
haven't
is
seen
the-
that one, that
Yeah,
agreement.
yeah,
I would
I'll
like to
find
see
out.
it
Sister
if you
Pauline
haven't.
had it, she dug it up out of her files.
And it was with the town.
Yes, yeah.
But that's a really good point. I was thinking about that when he was talking.
Yeah.
It's a huge,
And the athletic fields, as I said, they're there, and, the nuns do still own them. I mean, they have total access to them, but, again, because they wanna see growth in the town and wanna do everything, they want those fields to stay there, We, it's actually part of the villa property, but we have to actually ask permission from the nuns through the recreation department to use our own fields, technically, but that's okay. I know what athletic fields, I've coached. I know what the sweat and the trading off seed, I've heard that before in many towns,
And there is a $1 lease associated with
yes,
that.
it's a
by the way.
$1 lease, yep, very high priced.
And those checks have never been cashed in the 10 years I've been involved in Goffstown Junior Baseball. Probably doesn't do much for the bookkeeping, but.
And again, I just can't say enough about the support from the town. You know that road right in front of, I think sometimes they don't read that road sign well, and they think 114 is the speed in front of the school. But I'll tell you, periodically, the police department parks a car out there, and if they have a ticket quota, they make it that week, because they're stopping people all the time. They're very good. They keep us up to date. If anything happens around the area, they call us right away. The same with the fire. Again, I can't tell you how pleased I am with the good working relationship we have with all functions of the town, and every time the fire department or the police department call me, like I said, they've already used it for the 4-story, but they have a ladder in town that they have to have a certain size parking lot to use, so they call us and say, can we use your part? And I said, absolutely. So, you know, we do everything we can to work it, and I understand the situation you're in, so we're hoping that because of the spirit of cooperation and everything else, that I'm hearing tremendous things from a lot of the people here, and a lot of the things we do as well, that, you know, they really look at that and in the long run realize that it's a shared partnership. It's not you against us, it's not them against us, it's all together. I feel very comfortable, you know, calling Father Jerry all the time, and he's over at my school, and now that I've met some of these other gentlemen, I might be recruiting you for stuff at the school and stuff and everything else, so, you know, we really wanna be part of the community and do everything we can. At $140 a snow plowing job, that's not a bad deal.
That's good.
I don't wanna tell you what they charged at St. Joe's when I was principal there, for just the back lot.
Any last comments, questions? Well, gentlemen, really, it's been helpful to hear what your version of activities that you do and the extent of your activities that you provide for the community. And we're gonna take all that into consideration and see whether, as one of the other selectmen mentioned, if there's a monetary value that benefits the town, and equate that to the monetary value of the services we provide to your organizations. And see where which side of the balance scale it goes up and down on that one. Any closing comments? We're gonna move along to the next agenda item now. Okay? Yes.
So where do we, I assume where we're gonna proceed to from here, Sue, is we're going to ask them to present in writing to us a document that documents the value of services that they provide to the community so that we can look at them, and you'll coordinate that, I assume. And
Sure.
If I may, though, I do think, this is just me, that there needs to be a breakdown, not just lump sum.
Oh, I agree.
And I say that because in consultation with our attorney may say, well, X, Y, and Z, I believe that there is a defendable or justification, and therefore, that's one, but I cannot support this, this, and this, and if they're lumped together, then we
Oh, I
couldn't
absolutely agree,
possibly.
yeah. There needs
Itemized.
to be some sufficient detail.
Right.
I just want to correct a statement I made earlier. It's $23 for the villa, not $140.
Better.
Yeah.
It's even better.
So,
I just, for the record, I would love to, we have never asked Carl how he arrived at that price. So just so our DPW director, because I'm thinking, how is that possible? $123 for that villa parking lot.
He
I mean,
says plow and driver hourly rate is $98.34.
I understand, the plow and,
It's equipment.
Driver way.
Equipment plus all the benefits.
yeah, all right,
Can I make
Yep.
one
Yes,
more comment?
yes, Reverend.
Jerry Bergeron again. When you compare dollar to dollars, there are some things that are more important than dollars. There are intangibles. The intangibles of community cooperation, the intangibles of the services that we provide to our community that are above and beyond the dollar limit, and what they provide for our students and our youth. And if we're looking at dollar to dollar, it might not equate, but my kids and the welfare of some people in this community are much more important than quote-unquote the almighty buck. So I just wanted to make that comment.
And that's why one of the things we need to consider is public safety.
I was just, would ask that we get some kind of request in writing with some, whatever guidelines, so that we know exactly what you want.
Yep.
It's reasonable.
And then we can make our decisions from there.
Yes, we will be doing that. Yes,
yeah, and,
Selectman.
you know, I will say that, you know, again, I don't want to belabor this point, is that churches and synagogues, et cetera, mosques all across New Hampshire do all the same things that are done here. And they do that, and that's their charitable purpose. That's why they don't pay federal taxes. That's why they don't pay local property tax, because they're exempt. And I think, I think it's telling that 47 out of 49 Episcopal churches don't have the towns plow their facilities, because it's not so much about the spirit of partnership. I believe it's all about, it's the law. And I think, we're trying to make sure that we follow the law. And one of the questions that came up from the gentleman who raised this initially was, why snow plowing? I don't think that the town does any landscaping. I mean, we don't cut anybody's grass, right? We don't do any type of gardening, right? We don't paint any of your facilities, so we're specifically talking about plowing here. And, one of the questions that was raised is that gonna be defensible? And if that question was raised in a court, well, the town of Goffstown, why do you plow? You can make the argument because it's a safety issue. Having tall grass isn't going to. So I think we have to kind of focus very heavily on, is there a need? Is there a genuine need for the community of the town of Goffstown for that service, where you can almost have a quid pro quo? And then, is there some sort of a safety element, or is there tremendous benefit to the town? And that's what we have to focus in on, and that's why having that breakdown, I think, is important. Sorry about that.
Yes, one last. Yes.
Pastor has a question.
Oh, I'm
I just
sorry.
had a real quick question. Just for clarity's sake, I know initially the discussion was with regard to the snow plowing, but now municipal trash collection has come up, and, but no one's mentioned that the fire department won't come. If the church building's on fire, the fire department will still come, I assume. If there's a need for the police, they'll still come. They actually spend a lot of time in our driveway watching traffic anyway, which we're all in favor of. But I assume those things will still continue.
Those are town responsibilities for your, yes, they will.
I'm just curious how they're different from trash pickup. I mean, I know how they are different, obviously, but how legally are they a different type of service?
We probably have the two chiefs here, but I'm going to summarize them as
Public
emergency.
safety. Emergency public safety.
Okay,
public
so that's
and
separate
safety.
category.
Yes.
Excellent.
Well, that goes back to what you said about plowing the roads. That's really a safety issue, and the picking up
Right.
the
Trash is.
trash is a health issue. So to provide supervision and consistency and across the board, trash and
But,
snow plow. I can really easily see the snow plowing because it is a real safety issue and stuff like that. And I was gonna ask a question too about, okay, now all of a sudden fire happens and they're practicing on our building, but they can't come to it, so, yeah, it's a snowballing issue.
There's one thing that I hadn't mentioned, is that every morning, the kids, school kids, use our parking lot waiting for the bus. The parents park in our parking lot, the kids stay in our parking lot, they wait for the bus, they get on the bus from our parking lot. This happens every morning throughout the whole school year, from September to June. I never brought that up, I just watched them every morning, but there's certainly a safety issue there. When our children are using our parking lot every morning waiting for the bus, and parents are there.
Thank you for that. Okay, gentlemen, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion from the board members on this agenda item? Sue, we mentioned a letter that could be going to these organizations. And
Maybe even devise a form in terms of
I think a
the
form would be much
information,
easier.
Yeah, that you're looking for and the value of each.
So it would lead them to answer specific questions.
Yeah, I think maybe, we probably should spend maybe 5 minutes on this, just to give Sue some guidance, but
We can come back to it. If
you wanna do that?
Yes.
After,
Yeah.
okay.
Item number 5, Lieutenant Khanna. Lieutenant Khanna's with the fire department. He's presenting,
All committees here.
the agenda item is business concept occupancy. And we'll let you interpret what that means.
Do a little bit of setup.
So did the city of Manchester steal your idea?
Not yet.
No.
They're
It was in the paper, so. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having us tonight. And by us, I mean the occupancy work group that we've had for the last several months. Derek Warren, Chief O'Brien, Brian Rose, Megan Terrio, Mark Tessier, and Rob Brown's missing tonight, couldn't make it, but he's been part of the team. Since we last saw you folks back in April, we've been meeting on a regular basis, and we've put together what we feel is a fairly comprehensive package of being able to guide people from the point of having an idea of opening a business in Goffstown to the point of actually opening for business, going through the processes of getting approved, getting their inspections done, and getting their doors open for business. On top of working on that project, we've also been meeting with people that have applied or are in the process of looking at facilities here in town. We've given them the opportunity to put a face to the people that they need to talk to. It's given them a kind of an informal setting to sit and chat with us to see what we'll be looking for as they move forward with the business, or if they're looking to relocate their business somewhere in town from one site to another. Recently, we met with a church that's looking to relocate from one site in town to another. We've met with a construction company that was looking to set up a rental business, and we've met with a couple other.
We've met with a developer looking to do subdivision. We've met with one applicant who is in the process with the planning board to help her clarify some of her issues that she's experienced.
And if it's all right with the chair, I'd like the rest of the members of the panel to be able to jump in when they see fit. We identified, as we worked forward with this, that there was a few problems that came to us. People have told us that they felt that they moved to Bedford and Hooks in the years past because they were confused by our process. They felt unwelcome by their experiences. Some businesses even committed to leases or to open for business without having a comprehensive plan, and only to find out that the spot they picked or the business they chose to do wasn't going to work here in Goffstown. So our goal was to provide them with a very systematic approach, which we feel we've put together. The packet I've given you, we had hoped to get it to you sooner, has a cover letter which was probably in your selectmen's packet today. So you can skip over that and go to the first
The one that with the blue border on the top.
colored sheet.
Yes.
I'd like to thank Megan for taking the lead on this one. The blue border on the top is kind of critical to this because it explains the process. It highlights the steps very quickly at the top of the page. As you go through the page, it gives you an idea of what we'll be looking for from the applicants, what the various plan reviews, TRCs, permits and approvals, inspections, who to talk to.
And for people viewing this, you mentioned TRC.
Technical Review Committee, which is made up of staff members who will review and ultimately be involved in the process of getting.
Many of those are here right now.
Many of those are
Yes.
here, yes. Brian Rose would chair that, and Megan and myself sit on a lot of them. The police department are involved. and we help get the applicant through the process and get them to understand. Brian can fill in a little more about TRCs.
It's essentially a chance for people to come in and bounce ideas off of the group, and also to get what the name of the group is a technical review, so that they can come in and get a technical review of what their project is. They propose to put a business into a building, and we have to review the building technically and review the site technically for deficiencies with our codes and deficiencies with the zoning ordinance and other rules and regulations that are in the town.
Quick question. It says here, it would always have a representative of each department, so that means that if Bill, you were the representative and you were on vacation that week, there would be somebody in your stead?
We try to get someone here.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm trying to avoid is that we have it seems like it's a really nice process here. We wouldn't have a situation whereby, well, thanks for coming, but unfortunately, the person who's supposed to represent the X department is not here, and therefore you have to come back. So we have some sort of a system in place where that would be very infrequent, I would assume?
It is, and typically when we have someone coming in for a TRC, Brian gets us notice, and if we're not gonna be able to be there, we can get comments to Brian to share with the applicants.
And we're actually setting it up so that we're gonna have a regularly scheduled meeting, so it's not gonna be a question of, do we know a week in advance or 3 days in advance when we're gonna go, but we're gonna know months in advance, because it's gonna be that regularly scheduled meeting, and we'll be able to have plenty of time to plan for if somebody is gonna be missing, and be able to give a report for that.
Those meetings now have been scheduled for the first and third Tuesdays of the month here at Town Hall, so we're pretty accessible on a regular basis. The next colored part is the actual application. This is an opportunity for the applicant to give us an idea of what they're looking for, so that we can steer them in the right direction, make sure they're talking to the right people, make sure they're getting the right paperwork, making sure they're getting the right paperwork back to us, and make sure they're trying to do something that they actually can do. They're not putting a explosives factory next to a kindergarten or something as drastic as that. It gives us an opportunity to steer them to the right locations. So that form gives us a decent amount of feedback. The next page is a checklist for the applicant and for us to help make sure that if there are stops along the way that they have to hit, we can steer them towards those stops. You've got ZBA, sign permits, electrical permits, plumbing permits, and so on, hitting each of the departments that's involved in this committee and steering them so that there's no last minute surprises. Someone's going for an occupancy permit, they want to open the doors on Saturday for their grand opening, and we go, yeah, you didn't do your alarm permit, we're not going to be able to get to that till Monday, so your grand opening's going to have to wait. They get all the information up front, and we keep things moving smoothly.
Bill, is there any time goals? I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of times from what I hear from some business owners is that if I do everything that you tell me that I need to do along the way, can you give me some time frame in which I should reasonably expect to get all of my permits and approvals? And again, I know that differs based upon what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do a slight rehab of a commercial space, that might be a small lesser time, and as opposed to we're doing a strip mall. I completely understand that, but it would be nice to know that based upon the complexity of the project, and if let's say for example you say here that a sign permit, okay, that typically from the would it be concept to approval, it generally takes X amount of time. 'Cause I think folks are trying to find out that's an important thing. They're trying to line up financing or
On the first colored page, under each of the stops along the way. There's actually, a lot of them have times attached to them. The other part of this process is when they fill out the application and they tell us what they want to do, we can give them some more precise feedback as to how long it's going to take us to process what they have for us. And the other thing that comes into play is the more organized the applicant is, the faster the process tends to go. We find that if you take somebody like when Planet Fitness came into town, they were very organized. They had all their plans ready to go. They knew who to talk to. They put their applications in. Everything moved very quickly. Where someone else who may have submitted a sketch on a piece of graph paper, didn't have a complete business plan, weren't exactly sure of their location, it takes longer for us to
Right,
process.
and I guess what I'm looking for, and first of all, I think this is awesome, you've done tremendous work. I personally would like to see accountability, not just on the town, but also on the applicant. Meaning that somewhere that, on this date, we received this request, and we asked for X, and then you gave it to us. Because it's a blame game, and the other thing where I'd like to, does anybody ever give you a business plan?
It's very rare that we actually see
Now,
a business plan.
I would be curious if there is one, please, if you have a business plan, please attach it. What I've seen or experienced from talking with business owners is that they have no plan. They blame the town for every single problem that they have, but meanwhile, they have nothing in writing. It's a concept of, well, I like baking cupcakes at home, and therefore I think I can open up a cupcake store, And that's all fine and good, but you have to do a lot of preparation and a lot of work. And a lot of the businesses that are not succeeding, they're failing, not because the town didn't authorize a sign permit in 4 weeks or 8 weeks. They fail because they have no plan in place. They have no money in reserves. There's a whole host of reasons.
And we think that this application and the checklist is gonna kind of tickle that
Right.
in the applicant to say, gee, I ought to sit back and make a plan before, because they're asking an awful lot of questions that I may or may not be able to answer unless I have a plan. So I think that's gonna help quite a bit.
And I think the Economic Development Council, part of their mentoring program is we're partnering up EDC members with new businesses. This triggers that of, okay, let's go out and talk to them while they're still in the approval process, and we have people on the EDC that can
Yeah,
counsel them.
I like that part of it, yeah.
To kind of partner, rather than this specific group looking at, business plans and giving that advice.
This essentially is another item in your portfolio of interviewing prospective businesses.
Yes.
It's a very holistic approach, I think, to assisting a business owner, I think.
Well, and one of the things that we've talked about is as this starts to form, we start getting input and we get the inspections out there that we may not have been able to get before, we're gonna be able to develop a database. So that if business X moves into an occupancy and then decides it's too small for them and they wanna move on to something else, or, excuse me, or that business isn't for them, we know what's in that building now. So when someone comes to Derek and says, I'm looking for a building that has this, and X number of square feet, he can pull that up in the database and go, well, we got this, you can look here, you can look here, and it'll steer someone in the right direction, again, so that you're matching up the right type of business with the available space.
Yes.
I think this is a great process, a great tool to be using. As somebody who works with us on a day-to-day basis, I mean, the regular community, what they really want and what they're looking for is a process that's understandable, that's consistent from one situation to the next, and most importantly, that has a predictable outcome. In that case, this is approvals. So I think this is right down that line. I think this is a great document. I compliment you for putting it together. It looks great.
It was a team approach, and as a matter of fact, there were a couple occasions where I couldn't attend the meetings. The chief and I were down the street at a fire one day, and the meeting went on without us. So it's a good working group, some great minds working together to get this. The next part of our
Well,
package-
let me interrupt from the great minds working. This was an outgrowth of a degree you had
It was
pursued?
a paper I did for
Yeah.
my executive fire officer study. Yeah, and
Thank you
that's,
for one of the great minds that's in it.
thank you. This wouldn't be here without this team. Great bunch of folks to work with. We also, playing on some of the feedback you folks gave us the last time, in the electronic world we live in, we've pieced together, primarily Derek has pieced together, a web page that's on the town website that'll be accessible to the applicants.
And I think like the process that we talk about, this is going to be something that evolves over time. But what this serves is, you know, as well as putting our GIS, some of our assessing information out there, so somebody can try and find a space. This gives them an idea of what the process is. It goes through and it explains each step throughout, giving contact information for those people. And people can go on and see, okay, you know, I need to define the project and the site information. Applications are provided, email addresses are provided, and what I can do is I can send you this link. It's kind of hidden on the website at this point, so you can go through and explore it for yourself. It goes through, okay, you need your permits and approvals. It gives you links right to those documents when you need, you know, street excavation, you're doing a demolition, anything. So it's got that information. It explains the inspection process, going through those, and gives you those people to contact, and as well as occupancy. But like the application itself, it's going to be an evolving process. So this is kind of that starting point of where we think it starts, and it just kind of talks to people to bring them through that.
Again, the theme of the individual steps falls with the paperwork. People can get to the point where they need to be and get the information they need without having to dig through other information to get there. It's very quick, very accessible.
Where would you envision this on the website? Its own special front page link, or?
Yeah, I mean, it could be
Planning,
something
I
that,
mean, it
it's
crosses all
something that we
departments.
could link to from multiple places when
Every
you're in
department,
looking
yeah.
at building department, fire,
Every
economics.
department, it should be linked from.
Yeah.
I mean, police, fire, every single one.
So when anyone's looking at those things, they say, okay, here's your process, here's your development process.
Derek, has this or will this be beta tested with a select group of projects of varying complexities to try and look for, to debug it and look for?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
for-
We haven't discussed that. I think we kind of have been beta testing it a little bit with some of the groups that Brian's been bringing to us as people have come in and inquired about space and what approvals would be necessary. He's talked to them at length and suggested, why don't you come, we got a meeting tomorrow morning. Come and visit us, and those people have come and sat down with us and talked for, you know, half hour, 45 minutes. So, you know, as far as using the application, we haven't gone that route yet.
So it's a little more informal, it's not applying this specific.
It's informal. Again, most of these are gonna be preliminary, and it's going to run parallel to any site plan requirements, any zoning board approvals, and as well as our current permitting process. This is kind of, it's almost like an umbrella that brings all those together underneath.
I think over time, we'll be able to evaluate what's up there on the web and what's in the application, and try to determine, you know, is it working right? Do we need to modify it in any way?
Sure.
I think, you know, as long as we can leave that up to the flexibility of the staff to continually work on that and update it and make sure it's, you know, the right application.
Brian, has any of this been presented to the zoning or
Yeah.
planning boards?
No, it has not yet.
That would probably be a good idea before we go.
Okay,
And
so-
EDC,
Yeah.
and Economic Development
Yes.
Council.
and Derek for economic development. I would endorse you doing that. I would like to be able to get a lot of buy-in. To me, it is something that we definitely need to pursue. And applaud all of the town staff for getting together to do this.
We have one more piece of the puzzle here.
Quickly.
Through our police department, we've actually drafted an ordinance to go with this package. It's at the back of your packet for your review.
Okay.
And what this ordinance basically does is it helps codify the process.
Okay,
It
so
helps
it's,
encourage people that may be a
and once
little
again, it's
reluctant.
important for the planning to be involved with such an ordinance. So, any final guidance for Lieutenant Connor on this?
Well, I have several questions, and I'm sorry that I missed the other presentation when we came here, so this is kind of all new to me. And, you know, I guess the question that I have is it the feeling of everybody here that this is friendly to business?
I think as a group, we feel that this process offers a business a very friendly course. I think that
Okay.
the bi-monthly open conversations that we've made available now make it a face-to-face process instead of telephone tag and email tag. It gives them the opportunity to sit face-to-face with the people they're gonna have to deal with to go through a process or go through their inspections.
If I can follow up, in the packet, on, I guess it's the second page.
Can I interrupt? Is it possible, I think this merits additional time tonight, but I know that the chief of police has an award that he would like to give out. Bill, is it possible that we could suspend it and then come back so that the chief could, because I have questions too, I don't wanna.
Well, I have a lot of problems with this ordinance in here.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
according
I'm
to
saying-
that
but,
ordinance,
you know,
the
but I'm-
brownies,
I didn't wanna
selling their
take up-
brownies
no.
out there is in violation of the ordinance.
Good, Phil, I didn't want to discuss the ordinance tonight, because that's another
we've
item
seen it.
many weeks down the road. The basic concept is, I'm in favor of the direction you're headed, and then doing other reviews with the other boards and committees in town.
Mr. Chair, would you be all right with, if we just suspended this conversation for the time which the police chief can conduct his
Yes, I
ceremony, and
do.
then we can resume if the folks here don't mind staying for 10 more minutes? Okay.
Then, we'll come back to that agenda item, Lieutenant Connor.
That's all I wanted to do, Father.
Thank you.
Crazy.
And,
You're never gonna have businesses
Our,
in this town.
Phil, our 7:30 agenda item, and Chief Sullivan's in the hallway now.
You know something? Just tell me,
There he
who's
is.
been working on this that has a business?
Hello, Chief Sullivan, 7:30.
Not one person. But you're all gonna tell what's good for a business.
Phil, that's enough.
I'm sorry.
We're being invaded.
Yes.
No, this is a big deal.
How did you keep
they all have
everybody so
guns.
quiet in the hallway?
Yeah, I'm in the other room.
He's the chief, how do you?
Has a
think?
weapon.
Colleen?
I'm going to turn the floor over to Chief Sullivan. All I know, we have the subject is a presentation of Medal of Valor and Heroism Certificate. So,
Thank you.
that being said, Chief, please, lead on.
On May 9th, we had a fatal fire here in Goffstown. I think it was over 30 years ago, we had the last fatal fire. So as a community, it stung. There was a great deal of fire, it was an older building, this can be attested by all the members of the fire department. Two people's actions really stood out that day. On the first, I'd like to present Colleen Hanneberg. She lives in the building, and this is the citation of heroism that we've been developed by myself and Chief O'Brien. During the early morning hours of May 9th, 2012, you observed smoke in the immediate area of your residence at 53 Church Street in Goffstown. Upon hearing someone yelling fire, you evacuated both your mother and son out of the apartment building. After ensuring your immediate family safety, you re-entered the building, began banging on your neighbor's door in an effort to alert them to the fire. Knowing that one of your neighbors was still in the residence, you continued to bang and throw yourself against the door in attempting to force it open. The tenant finally opened the door and was able to safely evacuate the building. You then went to the rear apartment where you were able to make contact with the tenant there, and he too was able to safely exit the building. Colleen, it is because of your unselfish efforts and determination that the loss of life is no greater than it was. Your actions on May 9th were exemplary and without question heroic. You are to be commended for your actions, subjecting yourself to danger in an effort to save others. Next, I'd ask to call up Officer Scott Adavisian. Scott was on duty that same, or he was not on duty, excuse me, he was home. He lives on Church Street, and he lived directly across from where the fire was. And this is what was observed from both the reports and eyewitness accounts. During the early morning hours of May 8, 2012, Officer Scott Adavisian was alerted to a fire at the neighbor's apartment building. Although Scott Adavisian was off duty at the time, he responded to the apartment building. Once there, he encountered a man outside of the building who stated his father was still inside. Officer Adavisian then entered the residence through the front door of the building, already engulfed with flames and heavy black smoke. Without protective equipment or breathing apparatus, he began to work his way towards the back bedroom. While doing so, he heard someone from outside indicate the man was out of the house. Upon exiting, it was determined that the observation was for another tenant of the building, and that the other man was still unaccounted for. Officer Adavisian re-entered the burning building and began to work his way to the back of the house on his hands and knees. As he neared the back bedroom, the fire erupted and made getting any closer impossible. Once outside for the second time, Officer Adavisian learned of other apartments located in the rear of the building. He then entered the basement and the second floor of the apartment building and cleared those areas of other tenants. Due to the early morning hour and the age of the building, and the large amount of fire within the building, I find that Officer Scott Adavisian's actions demonstrated great courage and valor in the face of extreme danger, and he faced that danger repeatedly in an effort to assist citizens of Goffstown. Officer Scott Adavisian has earned the honor of being awarded the wearing of the Goffstown Police Department's Medal of Valor. That's it for our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Very good.
Thank you, Chief.
Very much.
Kathy. Were we to come back to the fire chief?
Yeah, I thought we were gonna come back to, the occupancy, concept of occupancy, if we could.
I mean, yeah, we had excuse me, so the grant applications are totally completed, right?
Yes.
Okay. So still, before us is the concept of occupancy guide. And we'll, I'm going to reopen the discussion now on the occupancy guide. I'm not expecting any decisions to, proceed hard and fast, but recommendations tonight to what your next step is and to move forward on those. So on that vein, any further presentations from the committee?
The last piece of your packet makes reference to a recent article in Union Leader, the City of Manchester, and recently encountered uprising is the appropriate term, but they had a large influx of businesses that approached the mayor and alderman with concerns about confusion as to their occupancy process and their special permitting process. So it just goes to show that we're not the only community out there with some issues getting people into spaces. Conversations we've had with other communities during the research for this project, there are several communities are waiting to see where we go with this process. They're very interested in what we've developed here, which we're kind of sitting on right now.
So there weren't any full-blown models for you to immediately adopt?
Not in New Hampshire. There were a couple communities that had ordinances in place. One community we talked to, and I don't remember who it was, had an ordinance, but they really didn't realize they had the ordinance for the process. We found communities out in the West Coast who had more complicated models than what we have here. Obviously, simplicity is our best tool here to keep things moving in the right direction and keep it functional.
One thing that, actually, Selectman Devanza, you brought it up, does this make us business friendly? I think what it does is it takes that level of confusion that was occurring in the past and try to rectify that. I think our processes are pretty solid. I mean, our ordinances are there, our fire codes, life safety codes, building codes, they all exist. And the issue that we're seeing, or the frustration that we're seeing didn't lend to the I guess the tattoo that came upon us as we're not business friendly. I think it's the fact that when a person would get the green light or the thumbs up from the planning board or the zoning board, they just assumed that they were all set across the board. So this whole process makes it very transparent that, you know, even though they've gone through the planning or zoning board, they still have to meet other officials in town to make sure that they're all set. And with that, you know, if they follow this process, yeah, I believe we will be business friendly, or business friendly in the eyes of the business folks in town. Because then they're gonna know exactly where they stand, what they need to do, and not necessarily feel that one particular agency, whether it be the building department, fire department, or somebody else is picking on them. Because at the 11th hour, we're finally being notified and we're going, whoa, time out. You know, this may not work for you, or this doesn't work under the life safety code, and they're due to open up in 24 hours. We're trying to prevent that in front loading and make it very transparent what a person would need to do to open up a business in Goffstown.
So if, oh, sorry.
Selectman Gross, you had a comment.
No, yep, please go.
I was just wondering if a restaurant had been occupying a space and another restaurant, different restaurant wants to come in, do they go through this process?
They should go through the process. What happens with life safety and fire safety codes is they change every couple of years, 2 to 3 years, they change. Some of them are significant changes, some of them are minor changes, but that's your opportunity to make sure that you're providing a safe facility for the next occupant or for the next clientele. And I believe the same is true for the building codes. They also have a 2 to 4 year cycle. So we have buildings in town as an example that businesses have been in for 10, 15 years. They've gone through 4 and 5 code changes over time, and the building is more or less frozen in time. So it creates a situation where if there's an incident, it may become a larger incident than it would have been had they been up to current code.
But would they have to go through this entire process? I can understand the code process, but from a planning perspective, it's not a change in use, correct?
But they would still go through this process, but then they would get to that step and you don't need your zoning board approvals, you don't, it's just.
Okay.
it goes faster.
So on that checklist, it would say not applicable because it's not a change of use. That's what that checklist is for, to check which permits would apply to
But,
which cases.
but as they went to that first, to that, you know, that twice a month, they would go down there and they would say, you don't need this, this, and this because you're just changing this, but you do need these 4 things. So that's how I would envision it, but I wanna go back to what Selectman Adams mentioned, because I wrote down the same thing, is that, how do we test this? And even the concept itself, and again, it goes back to maybe what you were saying, Phil. Do you see a benefit, or does the board see a benefit of having some business owners as a focus group and bringing them in? Maybe some in the recent past, maybe bring in a couple that thought your process was horrible before, and or bringing on current business owners now and walking them through, giving them that presentation, saying, okay, what do you like about this? What do you don't like about it? Because the fact of the matter is that you are all looking out for your specific, whether it be life safety, whether it be zoning, engineering, etc. But as the business owner who's looking to turn a profit on this business the venture that they have, you know, how are they going to perceive it? And I think that would be a big benefit. So even though it might take you a little bit longer to get this thing off the ground, I think having a focus group or two with business owners may help uncover some things that maybe you didn't quite think of. That'll be my take. And then the other thing was, how do you know if it's successful? And I think on the flip side, if and when this gets implemented, there really should be some sort of a survey process at the end to say, okay, as the business owner, you just went through this process. What worked? What didn't work? Was it, you know, how can it be improved? So you should always be trying to get feedback from the people that you're serving to say, how can we streamline it? And last but not least, I just wanted to make 2 comments. One is, you know, for those people that are out there that town departments don't communicate with each other, because sometimes I hear that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. I think this is a clear example that our departments talk and they facilitate conversations all the time about common problems or concerns, and this is a prime example of that. And the other thing is that wear my budget committee hat, I see a lot of times there's a tax, I shouldn't say a tax, but let's cut professional development, okay? In this particular case, and this was an outgrowth of Lieutenant Connor's professional development, in which, you know, the town assisted Lieutenant Connor, and this sparked and spearheaded something like this. So a lot of times, you know, you're trying to, you know, we're spending money on these type of development activities, but this is, and then you're expecting that you're going to get something out of it in return. And Derek, you've furthered your education, others, and Chief and others. This is the outgrowth of that. We get good, you know, good outcomes. So I appreciate you using that, what you've learned, and the money that's been spent on your development, and coming up with a nice product. In terms of the ordinance, I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I think if we go through focus groups, you know, maybe some of those concerns that you have would come out and say what's good, what's bad, and take it from there.
Other comments from the board? Yes, Brian.
I would just make a comment that, you know, the ordinance we felt was needed because, you know, there are some that would have used what setup we've sort of given ourselves as a town and as departments, and that would go in and just, you know, fly-by-night operation, or, you know, do whatever they want and think that they're above the law to, you know, operate whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it. And I think it's sort of set up to address those types of groups. It's not necessarily set up to hurt businesses that want to come in, but it's set up to give the town some type of teeth when we do need to enforce the rules. And hopefully that won't happen very often. Hopefully, you know, if we can get wind of businesses that want to come in and we say, hey, come talk to us in this group. We've got all this information that we can give you. Hopefully that'll be the start that they really need to get themselves off on the right foot instead of the wrong foot, and down the road, 6 months later, they're in trouble because, they're not meeting all the codes, and they're not meeting what our regulations are requiring, so, there are unfortunately some times when you have to enforce that, but you hope to not have to do that very often.
Selectman DeVazza.
Yeah, in response to my comment about this, okay? I guess the difficulty that I have is now we have a business that wants to come to Goffstown, comes into the planning department, where you would go to the planning department to get your information. And I appreciate trying to address the issues that we've had in the past, okay? I understand that. But I don't see coming into the planning department and be told that you gotta go in front of a committee. Okay? One more layer, now I gotta go to a committee to establish a business. When I look at this ordinance, what is the definition of a business? The first question. Okay? Little girl's putting up a lemonade stand. That's a business. While it might not be the intent of the people sitting here in this room that they're in violation of that ordinance, but they are in violation of that ordinance. And the last thing I want to see is 10 years from now, those little girls going over and getting a $50 fine because they never went, they're in violation of the ordinance. Call it preposterous as you want, but it's happened in the United States already, okay? What I see here is the way we try to address garage sales at once. Because we had one person in town who was taking up all the staff's time and complaints. Well, the answer to it was we're gonna regulate everybody, and everybody's gonna have to come into town hall, and you're gonna have to get a permit to have a yard sale, okay? That's the way I see the perception of this being to address the issue. To me, I see the simple way of doing it is, if I'm gonna open up a business, wherever the town is, what do? I go into the planning department. Go into the planning department, and you know what I would appreciate getting? Is the checklist of everything that I need to go through. Very simple. I can look at that. Any questions? I have one contact person. Not that I have to go to a committee. As one more thing, I'm gonna go to a committee. One more thing in Goffstown. Now they have a committee you gotta go to open up a business.
Okay, that could be an outcome of our focus groups and other which have been suggested.
That could be a flip, though, by the
Yeah,
way. I mean,
so-
you could argue the other way around.
Alternative to that is
Yes.
they have to contact each and every one of us separately, and it takes them that much longer. I mean, this
It's
is the chance for
one-stop
them
shopping.
to
It's going into
get
the
here,
supermarket and all
see us all in the same room, same time.
Why do we need an
all
ordinance
set
then?
up.
We may not, but it's part of the discussion for future, for the the development of this, and we may not need it, but it's useful to look at it on the table to see if could be needed
And I'm not
and
prepared to
useful.
discuss the ordinance, first time I've seen it.
Right, and that's why I don't want to discuss it tonight. We need the concept to be reviewed by the planning board, specifically economic development, see how they would like to tweak or suggest modifications of the concept, and then come back here.
It's funny, because in reading through this and hearing the presentation, and I haven't had any prior conversations with anybody here about this, but I spoke to a woman who owned a business, moved the business a couple of times, now she's no longer in Goffstown. She told me that when she told me what she wanted to do with her business, and I'll just say it's Barb's Coffee Plus. She's no longer in Goffstown. When she told me what she wanted to do with her facility, it triggered like a lot of these things. Sign, she was gonna then wanted to put in ice cream. There was parking issues. There was a whole slew of things. The building in which she wanted to do it in was really not. There was windows where you had to put there was a safety issue there. I mean, there was a lot of different things. And she said to me, she's like, if I would have known, all these different things, I don't think I ever would have leased from this particular person, So I think if anything, that going in and having the ability to talk through it with the individuals that are gonna be responsible for the sign permit, for this, that, and the other thing, I think it would have helped this individual, because she would have realized, wow, wait a second, let me talk to the landlord here, because from what I wanna do, you need to do this, this, and this before I sign on the dotted line. And I think that's where so I see what you're saying, Phil, you don't wanna set up a bureaucracy, but for the same token, if that business owner can have that one-stop shopping where everybody who's involved in this checklist is there, and they can assist them, rather than going, oh, you know what, yeah, you did check off the sign permit, I took care of that, but by the way, next trip is to visit with the fire department on the life safety, and after you're done with that, please go over to Megan to talk about the driveway permit, and then go over to the sewer commission, because you might have to pull a sewer permit, and then, oh, by the way, we have a wetlands issue that you might have to contend. So, I mean, I think in some issues, it's better that they do see that group of folks, because they're all there working, hopefully rowing in the same direction. So I think that's a positive.
Wrapping it up, closing comments by the boards. Any?
I think it's a program that in time would probably work for this town. I make a suggestion, we develop what we call a pilot program. And like it was mentioned before, we do test cases with new businesses in town, and we see what happens. To relate this to the fire academy, so that I understand it, I mean, we run the program, we come back, we sit down, and we reevaluate, and it's work in progress, always constantly making changes and bringing it better and making it better, so that the people in town don't have to do what we've heard for the last several years of the issues.
Selectman Adams?
I support this wholeheartedly. I agree it needs some testing, and I think we need to do the feedback, so we're constantly improving the process, but I think it's worth moving forward.
I support the concept myself. It's shows the ability of our staff here in the town to work together and being able to promote your own niche of responsibility, but as part of a team to help the residents and business owners. Selectman Devanza.
Yeah, I appreciate trying to address the issues and at least bring the issues together on one page. And to me, it would seem that if we are going to be business friendly, that what we would have is, and I understand the point that was brought up, well, now some person has to go over here and they have to do all of these things, but if we have all these things condensed into a single checklist, they come into the planning department, okay? And I would prefer to see one person. I mean, I know we don't have a line outside every day of people who are looking to start businesses in Goffstown, so I don't think that that's an issue. That one person that has that's familiar with this could help and work with that person to walk that person through that. I would prefer to see that to be business friendly, to try to attract businesses rather than give them this whole thing that's up on the website, go through that, come in, meet with a committee, go through all of these different things. I would like to see somebody trying to work with that person and walk that person through this.
Selectman Gross?
I think you can still do that.
Your view on the
Yeah, I'm
closing
in
comment.
favor of it, and I think you can do all those things and still have a point of contact for that business owner, but still have that same, and that'll be the economic development person or the planning person is still gonna help that person walk through it, but they're just getting that, that initial ability to ask a lot of the questions. But you're always gonna, that's what I hope our staff is doing. I hope they are serving as that point of contact. So if there is an issue, they're directing them to the right spot.
Okay.
If I could just,
Got Lieutenant Connor, need any closing guidance
it
as to
sounds-
what you perceive, what you want as the next step here?
It sounds like the board would like us to present this to other committees and bring back their feedback. We'd like you to have the time to digest the package that you have in front of you. We'd like to come back and see you after we visited the other boards and work from there.
And pick up on the comment that how could this be tested, drive, with
feedback. I mean, like,
or
maybe
feedback.
use, some select business, help ask Robbie Grady or others, can we get a couple of business owners, can we present this to you? What do you see as some of the positives? What do you see some of the negatives? And maybe ask the questions as to what, Selectman Devan's has been talking about. Do you see this as more of is it more cumbersome for you? Do you think it would be easier? How would you like to see it? And try to get that feedback. Because ultimately, we're trying to help the business owners. We're trying to do our jobs to protect the community, and that's why we have all these permits and these approvals, but by the same token, try to make it as easy as possible for the business owners.
And I think, in the end, there will be, somebody coming in the door and wanting to speak to us. It'll probably be me ending up being the point of contact for a lot of those people, if not most all of them. But at the same token, I don't know Bill Connor's fire code answers and questions that he's going to be telling these people. I haven't inspected the building, so part of it's going to be that, we're going to need a chance to get inside that building and maybe look at it. Part of it's going to be, engineering questions that I may not have the answers to right up at the front when I speak to them on the first day, and even then throughout the process, I'm going to need to rely on these guys. And so rather than me calling them up and saying, hey, do you have all this stuff, it's easiest to get together and have them just give that input all up front. I mean, we have talked about this and thought about it, and we feel like this is the right process to be going through.
Okay, no,
I got no two, so he's the king.
okay. I appreciate the staff being here. We got the building inspector, town engineer, planning and zoning, economic development, and the fire department representative. And good teamwork, and we've given you some guidance. Go out and do good, and we'll hear more about this in a later agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I just have a moment to transact something with the police chief? I don't know if he might be waiting to see me.
Go ahead. Talking about ordinances, if we go one scale up the ladder, we got state laws we have to be concerned about, and one state law says the 20th of June is fast approaching. Yep.
What tree are you barking up now?
The chief is here for that item also.
I'm one leg up on that one. Kathy, please, come up while we're waiting for Catherine to return so she can take notes. Okay. So, I was making jest of the 20th of June fast approaching, but that's the reason you're here.
Yes.
Please tell us more.
Well, I'm here for my annual discussion with you regarding unlicensed dogs in the town of Goffstown. And I provided a packet for the Board of Selectmen on Thursday with a confidential list of all of the keepers and owners of dogs in the community that have not licensed their dogs. As of the end of the day on Thursday, we had 286 unlicensed dogs. That continues to go down on a daily basis as people come in. We have made an attempt to try to contact as many people as possible by email to send them a reminder. However, one of the challenges that we have is as we receive names of people that own dogs, they're given to us by law by the state vets. The information comes in from the vet's office, and that's how we obtain it. So it doesn't necessarily have a good phone number for the resident, and it also doesn't necessarily have an email address for that resident. But we are required to send out notice to them that the dog's name was turned over to us, and that the dog has a valid rabies shot, and that they owe us for the registration of the dog. So our standard procedure is that we receive the name from the vets. We send out a postcard notification saying that the dog needs to be licensed. If we don't hear from them within 1 month's time, we send out a second reminder postcard to them as a courtesy. And then standard procedure is the last week in March, we send out a notice to all dog owners, because April's dog registration month, to remind them that their dogs need to be registered. On the outsides of the postcards, we put the names of the dogs, and we put a little note if the dog needs updated rabies shots as a helpful reminder to people. This year, we participated in our second annual dog clinic at the Animal Rescue League in Bedford, and this offered citizens of Goffstown and Bedford a discount opportunity to get a rabies shot for their dogs for $10. And if they brought proof that they had a previous valid rabies on the dog, they could get a 3-year vaccination for that same $10, which was, very cost effective. And the other thing that was offered to the Goffstown residents this year was a program that dog owners could come in and they could get a microchip put in their dog for $15, and also have the chip registered to them with their name and address. So if the dog got loose, that they could call a particular national program and try to help get the dog back. So we found that, that was helpful. So we had quite a few people that took advantage of that. We're hoping that next year we can try to ramp up our advertisement to get the word out so that more people can participate. And one of the things that we've been doing with word of mouth over the counter is people are coming in to register their dogs, trying to let them know about this annual program so that the timing's right, that they can take advantage of that discount rabies, because it is very expensive for people to, make an appointment to go to the vet and bring their dog. And people that are having financial hardships, we're trying to offer them some opportunities, for discount days around the state that they can get an affordable rabies vaccination and meet their requirement to get a dog license. So in the handout that I gave you, I just tried to recap and state the information from New Hampshire Chapter 466 on licensing of dogs, telling about what the warrant and proceedings are. And one of the things that I italicized in here is the word shall, because I'm here tonight because I have to follow state law, and the state law, every time it says shall, it means it will be done until the state law says something else. And so the town clerk shall annually, between June 1st and June 20th, present to the local governing body a list of all those owners of dogs that have failed to license or not renew their dog licenses pursuant to RSA 466-1. The local governing body shall, within 20 days from June 20th, issue a warrant to a local official authorized to issue a civil forfeiture for each unlicensed dog. The cost of service shall not exceed $5 and may be recovered by the town in addition to the amount of the civil forfeiture. Under Section 466-13 forfeiture, whoever is a keeper of a dog and who fails to license or renew the dog license pursuant to RSA 466:1 shall forfeit $25 to the town clerk of the municipality in which the dog is kept. If the forfeiture is not made to the town clerk within 15 calendar days of the notice of the forfeiture, the case may be disposed of in a district court as a violation with a fine not to exceed $50, notwithstanding the provisions of RSA 651:2, Section 4. A forfeiture shall not relieve the keeper of the requirement of proper licensing of the dog as required by RSA 466-1. Returns. Section 466-16. Each local law enforcement officer to whom the warrant named in RSA 466-14 is issued shall return the warrant on or before August 31st to the local governing body issuing it, and shall state in the return the number of the owners who received and paid the civil forfeiture and the number of owners who have received summons to a district or municipal court for failure to pay the civil forfeiture pursuant to RSA 466:13 or to license the dog pursuant to RSA 466-1. So I'm here tonight to answer any questions that you might have, and I made a recommendation for a motion that would allow me to go forward and ask you to authorize the police chief and myself to issue notices of $25 civil forfeiture and a $5 per household collection of service fee to owners and keepers of all licensed dogs as of 4 p.m. the end of the business day, Monday, July 2nd, 2012.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll second. I have a question.
fine. Discussion on the motion.
Well, the question I have is, up here it says approximately 286. Do you recall what it was last time you came in?
Yes. Last year, it was 288.
Same
So
people.
all the work that we did, we're up to, or down to.
Same.
It's, and a lot of the list, to my recall, are a lot of the same folks, you know, that we didn't see last year. And, they promptly come in when they get the $25 notification and,
Pay the extra
they-
$5.
They pay the fee, and they're agreeable to it. And we were able to get the list dwindled down last year, so by the time that it went to the police department, that it was dwindled down to, I think, less than 50 on the list. And the agreement that the chief and I have is that by the time it's turned over to him on which would be the 18th of July this year, that we will continue to take payment from people as they come in until the police department has time to go out and give them the notice of the summons to court.
So they've got a grace period.
So they have a grace period. So as far as somebody coming in, they'll have the rest of this month to get in there and pay without the civil forfeiture. That we wouldn't be issuing them to them until the first Monday in July. And then they would have until the 17th to come in and pay. And then after that, when the list is turned over to the police department, we share a list on the common file back and forth, you know, to be able to update our information, whether someone's come in and paid or whether a summons has been issued or a phone call. And once the summons has been issued to court, then we can't take their civil forfeiture. And last year, we collected around $3,000 approximately in fine money that came in.
For much more
And expended.
time expended in your your labor of all these departments. Selectman Gross, on this issue?
I'm sure, like most of us, we have to follow the law, so we'll most likely vote in favor of this. I just want to go on the record of saying I think that a lot of what's in this law is just absurd. I said it last year, I'll say it again. We spend far more trying to deal with this problem than what it's worth. And our resources, whether it be the town clerk's resources or the police department's resources, in times of economic challenge, this is absurd. And this would be one that would be very easy to remedy through our state legislatures. I urge our board to send a letter to our state legislature, to our legislators, and say, fix this. My other question is, does the statute, Kathy, does it mandate that you send out these reminders?
Yes.
It does. So it mandates that you send out reminder postcards?
We have to send at least one notification,
Okay, but not two, one.
but not two. We do it as a courtesy, and we work very hard to try to encourage people to come in,
All right.
because we don't want to get to a point that it has to involve the police department and their time.
My opinion only, is that I think if the number went from 288 to 100, I would think that our courtesy was a good thing. But since it hasn't changed an iota, I think we're just enabling people. So I would do the bare minimum, exactly as it says shall. I would send out one. I wouldn't send out anything else. And if they have to pay the $25, then pay the $25. If they go to court, then let the court system, and through the Police Chiefs Association and through the judges, say this is ridiculous, that we're sucking up time in district court for this stupid law, and go that route. But I think, you know, I would do the bare minimum. I mean, and I've seen you guys here. I've seen Stephanie going through the postage meter, putting, Trixie and so-and-so's handwriting the dogs' names on it. I mean, this is crazy, and, we've got, economic challenges where we're hoping to preserve people's jobs, and we're dealing with this Mickey Mouse thing. And it's so frustrating to me that we can't fix something like this. And then I see the chief, and I'm like, my God, we're trying to patrol streets and deal with limited resources, but yet we're going to go and knock on doors because so-and-so didn't register their dog, And if anything, if the legislature really wants to go and fix this, make it a $250 fine for not registering your dog. I guarantee you, you won't have 250 people in Goffstown not registering at all.
Not gonna happen during this legislative
Yeah.
session, but.
Mr. Chairman, I agree we need some legislation to change this. However, I don't think we let someone else define the fix. I think the Town Clerks Association, the Police Association, there's a reason for these laws, and I think between the two associations, they can find a fix. One part of this that feeds into this, I don't know how many dogs, Kathy, you find are deceased by the time this all goes through the process. And you, I think, told me that vets are not permitted to notify the town clerks when a dog dies in their community. That would cut down the number of these that we're doing, but there's a lot of little fixes that could be done and still have a law. The law's there for purpose. I think, Chief, you could probably speak to that. You want to know that these dogs don't have rabies.
We want them registered to verify that they in fact have rabies, and I think that's important to have them registered for rabies. On the flip side of that, my fuel budget last year was $24,000 over expended. And to go and say, okay, guys, now we've got to go spend more money on fuel to chase down unregistered dogs. In the past, we've always gotten the warrant, and then as we came across a dog complaint, we would issue the paperwork at that point.
One suggestion that I would have is that as a legislative fix is either one, increase the fine, or two, saying that if it comes where you don't register your dog, or if your dog passes away and you don't, after you get in the reminder postcards, it should be, hey, let me call up and clarify this, but you can't register your cars, you can't register a boat, you can't register anything, because they have to go through you anyway. So all of a sudden, it's gonna let you know that, I'm sorry, I can't register your car because you didn't register your dogs.
I saw that on the listserv. I think one
Well-
town was doing that.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that would be a lot easier way of doing it, because trust me, people will pony up the money to register their dog.
Selectman Devanza?
Yeah, Kathy, I was just wondering how this conversation that we're having here, since it's deja vu from last year. In the Town Clerks Association, I'm assuming that you are not the only town clerk that runs into this dilemma. Is this something that has been a subject of conversation?
Yes, thank you for asking. One of the problems that we have is that when legislation is proposed, it goes through lots of different committees. And it might start off in one format, and it turns out through all these committees to be in some totally different format by the time it gets done. And one of the discussions that went on this year was that would vets do dog registrations? But part of the discussion in that was that if the vet didn't collect the registrations, they would notify the town clerk, and then we would still be responsible for chasing for this unregistered dog, and we wouldn't have benefited from the money, all right? And, you know, we have issues with vet information that boil down to because we have a dual zip code that, you know, we're trying to straighten out whether the dog lives in Goffstown or the dog doesn't live in Goffstown, and did we get the rabies information, or did it go to someone else in the household that has the wrong zip code on their information, and now Manchester's chasing this dog and we're chasing this dog, and we have the dog in a system 3 times because our system isn't sophisticated enough to know that it's the same household. So it's a very frustrating task. It is important for the health safety of people in the community that we do this. It needs to be rectified, but I agree with Sue that I think that this needs to be approached in some pieces. If we could give up protecting the privacy of a deceased dog, and I could be notified that a dog died by the vet.
Why is it even private anyway? Can you explain that one to me? I mean, why is
Ask
that
the
private?
legislature that passed the law.
But why is it private that this is, why is that a private list?
And so I can't even easily remove dogs from the list and have a list that I know is good.
So?
Out of this 286, I could be chasing 50 families that their dog is deceased, and they didn't respond to the comment in my postcard that said, please contact me if you no longer have the dog.
And oh, by the way, like you said the other day, 2 years from now, that same dog miraculously shows back up into the system.
reincarnated.
But you're right, the statute is what the statute is, and it's gonna take legislative change to make it happen. And given the current political climate in Concord, anything that has a fee or a fee increase associated with it is DOA. It's not going anywhere. But you're right, we gotta start somewhere, and we've gotta do it through organizations like your organization to try and garner that unified support to try and push something through, because it's the only way it's gonna happen. I'm kinda curious, how many people took advantage of the reduced rabies opportunity at, where is it, Bedford, that you talked about, huh? Do you have?
This year, we only had 8 families. Last year, we had 15.
Wow.
And-
I'm surprised.
And part of it is that we don't get a
Trivial.
lot of publicity.
Yeah.
You know, it's not sensational news, and it doesn't make the front page of the paper. It's, you know, buried in some notices.
So, we've spent enough time on $5 fees here.
Dead horse.
Yes. Kathy, this confidential list that you've given us goes from A to M. That means everybody after M in the alphabet took care of their job?
There's several different sorts of that list that you have. So when you're looking at a page, there's some pages that only have through that letter of the alphabet, and there's other sorts that go from A to Z in there. And so that's why that is a good question, but there's 3 different sorts in there.
Your database has the full list.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's on the table.
Motion's on the table. We're ready to vote. Those in favor of the motion that was presented to us, signify by saying aye.
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 So can we have the Hillsborough County Sheriff be the,
He'd submit us a bill.
I believe so. It says here local, yeah. Why can't the Hillsborough County Sheriff do it?
I believe under the law, you could probably instruct them to.
Yes.
And if he didn't do it?
It's discretion.
Yeah.
I mean, if we didn't get to it all, it just says that I have to report back the ones that I have summoned
Good luck with that one.
or have registered. It doesn't say that I'm compelled to follow that.
Maybe if Sheriff Joe doesn't get reelected, we could hire him. to
I'm just
come out
saying,
and take
it
care of the
says
dogs.
clearly, I mean, if we're following the law, it says local official authorized to issue a civil forfeiture, which the sheriff is authorized to do that. Hillsborough County Sheriff.
Local doesn't that mean town?
Not necessarily,
So you have no authority over the sheriff.
but we're the ones who issuing the warrant to him. I mean, you have
Good luck with that
attorneys who
conversation.
issue warrant, right?
He has the ability to serve civil paperwork.
That's it, yeah.
I wasn't talking about the local sheriff. I was talking about Joe Arpaio.
Joe from Arizona?
He'll take care of the dogs.
They'll put them in pink tents.
Have we satisfied the law up to now so far?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you, and any action you'd like to take with the legislature, I encourage you to.
See, I think that should be a 3-prong approach. I think the Police Chief Association should attack it on their end. You can tackle it on yours as we can for our, municipal association, and then have 4 or 5 of them go after it.
Yeah, it just wasn't a
gonna take
priority
that.
this year.
Yeah, I
Voter
think it's gonna
ID
take
was a
it.
big priority for your association.
And that's part of the problem, is the priorities, that's way down on the list, just as it is here.
But it's easy, this is an easy fix, I think.
All right, thank
Everybody
you very
has a
much.
dog.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Do you deputize me next year, and I'll take care of this problem? For free.
Don't answer that, Chief.
I have the right to remain silent.
Part-time officer.
Good night, thank you.
Good night.
It's been a busy evening. Do we need a break for any reason?
Yeah.
8:30 break?
Yeah, just.
Okay. Andrew? How about the next item on the agenda?
Next item.
Town Administrators Report.
Thank you. The weekly meeting schedule is Tuesday, Budget Committee, and you're not gonna be there, right?
Selectman
And
Pierce is.
Selectman Pierce is gonna be there, okay. Selectman Pierce, would you ask if the budget reps to these other committees like CIP and the finance software and fire station improvement are going to be giving updates to the Budget Committee as they go along, or what the process is?
Ask the Budget Committee if they're going to receive that information.
Yeah, the Budget Committee Chairman asked him if he plans on
And it
what his
won't be
process
Phil
is.
Kendall. Because he's, he told me that he's not, I told him I couldn't make it and that you'd be there, and he told me that Peter Georgianis will be facilitating the meeting.
Okay, 7, it's on my calendar, 7.
Wednesday, 7 PM at Library Trustees at the library. We all set with that one?
Yep, on my calendar.
Okay. 7 PM Parks and Rec Commission. Mark, you're all set with that?
Mm-hmm.
And Thursday is CIP.
And I will,
You're all set for that.
pretty sure I got that one, yeah.
You've got that one.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'll be back by then,
Yeah.
I hope.
All right. Consensus folder tonight includes the accounts payable manifest of $252,842.64. A payroll and withholdings manifest of $139,356.09. And an employee status form for a degree incentive.
A motion to approve the consensus folder?
Second.
Those in,
I think Phil got it first,
Okay,
but I'll take you on the next one.
gotcha.
motion's been made and seconded. Those in favor? Aye.
No correspondence this evening. Assessors recommendations, the board acted on the land use change tax lien releases for MAP 9 lot 60-6 and MAP 12 lot 12-2 on June 4th, but the tax collector's warrant for these parcels was missing, so motion is needed to approve that.
Second.
Those in favor of the assessor's recommendation, the motion thereto?
Aye.
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 Thank you. The HVAC unit, which controls the upstairs on the admin side of the building, has failed. Since we were working on the RFP for the replacement this year for the HVAC system, we decided not to repair it, and we're getting by with portable air conditioners. Public Service provided an assessment by a mechanical engineer, Design Day Mechanicals, and that's at tab 9E in your packets for a recommendation on what type of system to replace it with. If he recommends a VRV heat pump system and using our current ductwork for ventilation and put a ventilation system in to bring fresh air in. If the board concurs with proceeding in that direction, then we will contact him for more detailed specifications to go out and prepare an RFP for your review.
Okay, I have a question.
Selectman Devanza?
This was provided to us through public service?
This is who Public Service uses, and they authorized him to do this for us,
To do the
to do this
analysis?
assessment for us.
The assessment for us, okay. How long has that section not been working? Do you know? Do we know?
Since right before I left for vacation.
Oh, okay,
A month or more. Yeah.
okay. And does that have anything to do with the heating or not, since was this a heat pump?
This is the whole unit, yes, and which controls heat and air conditioning.
Right, okay, I was just wondering though if it's possible that the heat was not working, but the air conditioning's been working for a couple of years, that's all. No, the only thing I just wanted to make sure is that he's aware whenever they get back to him, he's aware that it has to go out to RFP.
Oh, he's not a provider. When I
Okay.
asked for an assessment, I didn't want a provider doing the assessment.
He would get he would give you the specifications so that
only.
you could do the RFP.
Okay, so it's up
He's not
front.
in company.
That's all up front with him?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Oh, fine.
This is an objective assessment. He doesn't provide installation or sell the units.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to proceed with an RFP for the VRV heat pump system and ventilation system.
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
5-0.
At tab 9F in your packet, this went through my listserv, and I saw it, and I said, oh, we're gonna be discussing total compensation packages, and thought that this may be a useful tool as we move in that direction later, in this year, to look at the policy statement the town of Hanover had decided on for total compensation.
Thank you for finding that, and we'll be reading it and adding it to our homework.
Thank you.
Oh, you didn't read it already? I thought we were gonna be discussing it.
I'm sure you've discussed it, because you always read these packets well ahead of time.
It says the board will be
Part
looking
of our
at.
homework.
Yes.
Says the
This
board
is
will be
something
looking
you'd
at
like
it.
to
I
bring
looked
to
at
our
it.
attention, Selectman
Well,
Devanza, on
the
this.
only, what I wanted to, or the way when I read through this, okay? It starts out talking about the 70%, you know, a ratio of compensation to the total budget, but then as it goes through the thing, it talks about how things change and everything, so by the time you get to the end, it was like, okay, we started out that it was gonna be some kind of a ratio, but yet all these things change around, so I guess the point I'm trying to make is, it seemed to, by the time you got to the end, it's like, okay, well, what was the point?
Well, when I read that, I'll take that in mind
Okay, maybe you'll have
And
a
I'll-
different interpretation.
and see whether I come to the same conclusion.
Good.
And,
I mean, I think it's right on. It's everything that we've talked about in a short but sweet document. I mean, it's the fact that here you are, you're trying to keep your budget increases to like a minimum, but yet your wages, your retirement, all these other costs are going up much, much higher than that, and how are you gonna pay for it? You know, so I think it's,
Well, if I could just, the concept is a great concept, but, you know, you go through things that don't get passed on a budget, you gotta put them into the budget next year, now it starts throwing the mix,
Ratio, yeah.
the ratio,
Yeah.
that's
Of
what
course.
this
Oh, yeah.
gets into.
and what we don't throw away is all the labor and the benefit portion.
Right.
And this paper, like you said, starts off saying, this particular town, they desired that 70% of the total operating budget be the labor and benefit portion.
Right.
And try to hold it to that ratio. The other 30% is all the other infrastructure needs of the staff in town.
What's
Thank
not
you
in
for
your-
researching it.
Oh, no problem. What's not in your packets tonight are a few other items that have come up. G would be authorization for gasoline pricing. We are out of contract right now for gasoline because they had to start in at this contract price earlier. It was supposed to be starting in January, but they actually, the 2 deliveries in December started the new contract price. So we need to look at that. We had a price today of $2.91 from the current vendor, which is down from the $3.01, which was our contract. But if we're out of contract, obviously, we don't get that price.
Can I ask a question? Are you commenting about our discussion last week?
No, that was on heating
Oil.
oil and propane.
Okay, so this is separate, okay.
This is gasoline and
Well,
diesel that I want to address tonight.
Okay, but gasoline and diesel, are we out of contract now?
We have plenty of diesel left to get through the next 2 to 3 months, but gasoline, we are out of contract right now. The
And-
last delivery, we paid $3.16.
Which is
Out of
down?
contract, but the tanks are low.
Carl, the person that would have checked the tanks today wasn't in. He'll be in tomorrow to check how much gasoline we currently have in the tank.
The reason why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking,
Still trending downward.
well, yeah, but there was a big downgrade today on all the major oil companies, ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, Apache, all the drillers and everything, because of the anticipated slowdown in the world economy. As a matter of fact, it's anticipated that our increase is only gonna be a 2% increase for the year. So there is a world slowdown and they've been downgraded. So the anticipation is that.
What's that mean for Main Street?
it means
Well,
absolutely
it means the
nothing.
prices are gonna come down.
Okay.
If we go back into our minutes from like 6 months ago, or around there, we were talking about gas is gonna be $5 a gallon after Memorial Day, and I kept on hearing it and hearing it and hearing it. So, I mean, I love all these prognostications, but, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we can't, it's like throwing a dart at a dartboard. I mean, you can't figure this stuff out.
Well,
I think you
Scott-
can. because
Scott,
I trust
part
you,
of
but.
Part of it is a lot with it also points to the election that they had in Greece today, because I really thought that Greece was gonna go back onto the drachma, okay? But the vote was so close, to
We need to get
stay.
back back on focus here. Stay away
Well, I
from
mean, he's
grease.
asking me questions, so I have.
But I'm just saying,
We've
we
been
have to
tracking it
buy the
since the
stuff.
first week of May,
So,
and it's been
let me
going
let me summarize. Out of contract on diesel,
Yes.
but we have.
No, we're in contract with diesel.
We're
We got
in
2 to 3
contract and we got 2 to 3 months of supplies.
Yes.
Until, when does that contract end?
It's not a time, it's when you use the quantity.
So,
So
it's a
we
quantity.
calculate somewhere between 2 and 3 months,
So
depending on the
that
level
we
of
have enough
activity.
quantity on that contract for 2 to 3 more months. Okay, gasoline, out of contract. We need to enter into a contract for a fixed price.
Right, and there's only one vendor that will enter into a contract for a fixed price.
And that's
All
our-
the others
Who's
would
that?
be rack price, but it's our current vendor.
And what's the
Dennis
price
Burke-
right now?
Dennisburg. Our last delivery was $3.16 a gallon.
But you were saying something about $2.91.
He would give us a contract today, but like I said, that price changes every hour
Okay, but
during
so
the
we
day.
have, you're telling me
But
we
it
have.
was $2.91
So we have the
today.
opportunity.
Why
if
is
you
he
were-
gonna give you a price of $2.91 if you just paid $3.16 because the prices are going down?
They don't share their formula for,
No, they won't.
So you would like a motion, continue,
to authorize the town administrator to lock in, but I want to know from you, do you want to do I don't know if we want to do a 6-month lock-in. A 6-month lock-in puts you right in December.
Yeah.
And I don't think you want to be going out for prices in December, so should be at least 12-month
I
lock-in.
would agree.
Actually, 12-month lock-in would probably be good. You know why? Because this time of the year, traditionally, the prices come down.
Yeah. Last time we locked in September 23rd, last year,
Okay.
for 301.
Habib, he knows it all. I'll, you want that motion, Mr. Chair? or-
sounds like you need to make a motion there.
When
But
should
if
we
you
lock
don't-
in?
Selectmen
Tell us when to
demand for the
lock in.
Yeah,
Let's lock him in.
Yeah.
Get the towel put on his head, we'll be all set.
No, because the prices usually go down before the 4th of July weekend.
Which is now.
Which is now.
So that's what I'm saying, it's probably a good time. No, see,
Do it.
part of the problem that you have this year is that you have natural
was that
gas
motion?
and you have oil kind of going together, and normally they don't.
Is that a motion?
So move.
So do it for heating oil and, not for heating oil, gasoline and
Gasoline
diesel,
and- yeah.
because we're watching diesel too.
Yeah, you know, try to get them down to, try to get them out at 289. See if it go 289.
Throw
Tell
in
them I
some-
got
Maybe
authorization.
by tomorrow
And
it
throw in
will.
a dozen
Yeah,
cannolis
but
for
tell them,
fun.
you know what, instead of, we'll lock in for the 2 of them, rather just gasoline.
Yeah, I'm just looking at gasoline right now, but we
Okay.
might as well do the authority, because before we know it, we'll be there with diesel.
So the motion shall be to grant her the authority to lock in prices on gas and diesel?
The only thing you could do is you could wait till Wednesday,
Deemed in the best interest
12
of,
o'clock on Wednesday.
Second?
Second, yeah.
Yeah.
it's changing daily.
Yeah, but the price, but
So-
the reserves come out on Wednesday, the numbers for the inventories, gasoline inventories
If
come
we
out
had
at
a town
11 o'clock
manager, we
on
wouldn't be
Wed-
having
on
this
Wednesday.
conversation.
Okay. Was there a second?
Scott, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Catherine,
control
all
of it here.
the kidding aside, would you please read back the
The
motion?
motion, as I understand it, is to authorize the town administrator to lock in prices on both gas and diesel.
When?
When in the
She
best
said when
interest.
she-
When in the best
in
interest,
best interest
yeah,
of the
it's her
town.
call.
It's like,
It's a lot of pressure, Sue.
So,
Well, as long as it's in the motion.
And they're separate lock-ins.
yes, I don't
Yeah.
need to lock in right away for diesel, so I can see if the market continues to trend downward for diesel.
You better not mess up.
Phil, yeah, because Phil will let you know.
Will you ever know?
Those in favor,
Aye.
please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, Kath.
Yes.
Okay, now, as you probably remember, Mary Lou lease was due to be signed in,
Yes.
for tonight. We didn't receive it back yet, so.
Oh, from
But
them?
they have agreed, yeah, they have agreed. I guess the board had agreed to the terms when Derek was here at that last meeting.
Okay, but what about if I can, the discussion about the storage space upstairs? And what can be stored and what can't be stored? Did that get communicated to them?
I wasn't at that meeting. I thought it was.
No, we had
and-
the discussion.
Oh, okay.
Aren't you giving them a
Let me
room or
check.
something up there?
Still have
No,
those
the, on the
released.
third floor.
Right, on the third
Okay,
floor.
I'll
We
check
talked
the
about
language, Phil.
moving giving from the left tables to the right tables, but also with the discussion with Lieutenant Connor, what cannot be stored up there.
Those were two things
It's
have to be,
reflective in
those
the
two
minutes.
factors have to be clear in their response.
Got it.
Right, and it's reflective in the minutes.
Okay, and I'll make sure it's in the lease book,
Make sure that,
the way the minutes reflected it.
No cardboard.
So we
unless
should
it's-
have it back
unless
for
it's fire
signature.
coded.
You said you had two items not on the
CODED.
agenda.
Yes, the other one is direction from this board for hiring a GTV coordinator. We heard from two people, Carol Huxell and Dick, advising to move forward with a full-time coordinator, and to do that through the franchise agreement. Before we make our proposal to Comcast, I guess I need to see what direction the board wants to move in for this. Do we go forward and try to designate 2% of the franchise fees to GTV in the franchise, or, which would enable them to have the funding to hire a full-time coordinator?
Would such an action have to be done through the franchise agreement? I mean, isn't it a budget decision that we propose?
It could be a budget decision, but that would delay that till March town meeting. And so I guess then you'd have to hire a part-timer now, temporarily, until you have that decision in March.
So that if it was a budget decision, how much money is allocated to Gulfstown TV?
Right now, their budget is $65,000, so you'd be looking to increase that by about $45,000.
That would be a next year's budget decision.
Correct. Or you
And
could
then
take
you're
GTV
suggesting-
out of the budget.
Then you're suggesting the other way to handle the issue is modify the contract that's still under negotiation.
The franchise agreement.
To-
So, right now, 5% of the revenues come into the general fund, and then we budget for GTV. If you want to continue that process, then you would just increase the budget for GTV. But
When would such a contract be effective? Let's say it's signed in
Right.
30 days. Does
it would
that,
be effective immediately upon
well,
signature.
that would mean that,
The franchise agreement you're talking about?
yes, would that change the predicted revenue?
Yes.
Yes.
So we would be short revenue, the 2% for the remaining half of the year.
Right, correct.
Which would be about $35,000 around.
But then you
around
would be under-expended in GTV, because that money would be
Right.
going into the fund to pay for their current
Right.
budget. Basically, at
Any
town
other
meeting,
views
then
on
you
this
would have to
subject?
establish a
Selectmen
revolving fund,
Devanza?
table a
Yeah.
revolving fund.
I just have a question here. Are we proposing, or am I hearing, to change the contract that we have with Comcast? So that we're getting money from Comcast that's not gonna go through the budget process, that's gonna go directly to pay a person?
Go directly to the GTV budget. So the budget would be removed from their budget would be removed from our general fund budget.
The only concern that I have is that when we do something like that, here we are, we talk about transparency,
Mhm.
how we've done things with Parks and Rec about transparency. We just had pastors in here today, we're talking about transparency. And now we do something like that, does not seem to be consistent with what we're saying.
Would it be? Because what you're saying is that let's just say that.
I don't mean it's transparent as far as that, but what we're doing, instead of going through we've got a position that's in the budget. Now we're gonna change something midstream with a contract with Comcast, so that we don't have to have something go into the budget, so that we can increase town employee by not going through the
Out of
budget.
town, not necessarily. I mean, there's so many options that,
I'm just
which we're not even
saying
there yet,
how it
but
might be perceived.
I guess.
That's what I meant by
what-
transparency.
Okay, but
That's what.
right now it's 5%, and the 5% equates to, what's it,
$280,000.
$280,000. All right? So if 2% is dedicated to GTV, that means we get 3%, and I don't have my calculator with me.
112.
112,000 would go to GTV, and we, the town, would still show revenues of the 268, is that right? I'm sorry, 168. All right? So in terms of, I mean, for the transparency piece, all we have to demonstrate is, okay, we are now going to give GTV $112,000 a year. We're going to now reduce our revenue by $112,000 a year, but our expenses are going down by our budget of 65. So it's a net loss of revenue.
I understand everything that you're saying,
Okay.
but it just, the concern that I have.
Is the timing, or?
The concern that I have is that you have a position that's paid for by, that goes through the budget process every year. This position is part of the budget, it goes through the budget process. Now we're changing something that's not going to go through the budget process? How does that look? Without going through the budget process and say, this is what we propose to do it this way, and then from that point on, it goes that way. We're changing midstream, that's
Right,
just a
but
concern.
it's true, but would it be anything different than if we took out like, say, the police revolving fund? If that ever got off the ground, we would be taking all those monies out of the budget, and it would be
But
offline.
at least we've
It's still
discussed the
transparent.
police revolving fund at a deliberative meeting.
I'm not suggesting making the decision tonight, because I think I just want to see what direction you want to go through, because I think you should have a public hearing on the
Well, I get,
item for
that's,
transparency.
I didn't wanna make sure that we weren't gonna be making some kind of
Well,
decision right now.
I'll just go first in terms of what my assessment is. Having heard, Dick and others, and having, we were at the all boards meeting, I think if we're gonna try GTV and try to make it work, it needs more resources, and I'd be inclined to give them 2% of the 5%. And the mechanism of how we do it, whether it's a nonprofit, and they handle it, and it's out of our control, I think that could be up for another discussion. But when you look at other communities, all of their money goes towards, whatever the franchise agreement is, it goes towards the cable station. I think the 2% gives them enough to give them a full-time person and the other folks that they need, and still have a budget for equipment, et cetera. The $65,000 budget, I mean, they've been asking for increases for year after year after year. And
So is everybody else, every other department.
Right, and year after year after year, other departments have gotten more money. So, maybe not as much as they've wanted, but they've done it. I mean, and it is, when we talk about transparency, it's the one thing where the community gets to see all these different meetings. Now, do I think we can probably do better on, trying to do some more of the programming? I think that's gonna come. I really do. But you gotta give them a shot. And then the other thing too is it takes out of our budget, so it's, I think that could be a good thing.
How does it help me understand taking it out of, you're saying the 2% is out of the budget? We still have to spend the money, so it's in the budget.
No,
Not necessarily.
it won't be in the budget, it's gonna come right out of Comcast and go right over
Right
to
into
pay
their
the salary.
fund. Boom.
Right over
Done.
there.
Uh,
currently it
Controlled by who, though?
The town.
The town.
The town.
But it's a different fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally different fund,
And
not the
until we pass a
revolving fund.
a
Right.
cable revolving fund,
Mhm.
it would just be sitting in the liability fund until we got
Yeah, but
passage at town meeting for a cable revolving fund.
But what happens though, it's no longer in the budget.
Right.
It's
So the
amount that comes out of
$65,000
the
budget,
budget.
yeah.
And one thing that you have to be careful of, okay, we're on a default budget. And once we start doing things like this, I understand it's legal, I understand that. But you start doing things like that, and then people look at that and they say, gee, the selectmen had a default budget, look at all the things that they were able to do.
So
What
you-
more can they do with a default
So
budget?
you're not saying you're opposed to the concept of moving forward to a full-time, it's the timing of it, and that you would probably prefer to do it at town meeting?
How it look, what it, perception is reality. Okay, we're here, and I understand, and I don't, we have limited resources, we're in a dilemma that we have, we don't have Dick's been here for 17 years, Dick's not here anymore. Okay, we need to do something, we need to increase it, we know what it is, but, also the fact is that the form of government that we have a town meeting, we have a budget committee, we go through a deliberative session, we go through a ballot, and people vote on the budget. Now we're gonna do it, we're gonna take it out of the budget, it just, sometimes it doesn't leave a good taste in people's mouth, those selectmen, look what they go and do.
Sue, could the change in the contract be the change from 5% into the operating fund, make it 2 and 3, could it be effective on 1 January? So that
I think you'd want to do a town meeting effective after the town meeting vote, because you have to establish that cable revolving fund by vote at town meeting. So if you're gonna wait to January, I'd suggest just waiting to town meeting. Rather than just wait till January 1st, I'd wait till town meeting and have it effective, based on the vote for a cable revolving fund.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't,
That is a transparent
That-
process.
right.
So it'd
And
be-
maybe it doesn't have to be in the franchise agreement to designate, maybe you can still do it. But you'll still have to budget for it, but if they establish a cable revolving fund, that will have to make it contingent that you'd reduce the operating budget.
But there's, I don't know,
Gets
I guess
messy.
my concern is there's transparency, and that's being open and honest with what you're doing, and then there's doing that, which I think would be the most confusing thing. I'm just trying to think of how I'm gonna explain this to the budget committee. Okay, we're gonna have this budget, but then we're gonna take it out, but if the voters vote this way, they're gonna take the 2% and we're gonna do that. I mean, to me, it just seems like it's way confusing. Whereas if you can have a public hearing or 2 public hearings, spaced a month apart or whatever, and say, here's what we're thinking about doing.
You're not gonna be at the next budget committee meeting?
That's tomorrow night.
I'm not gonna suggest this.
No.
But do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I think there's a way of letting folks know what we're considering doing.
What I was suggesting is if you go to the budget committee and you just let them know what we're thinking, the dilemma that we're in and what we're planning on doing, we're gonna have a public hearing and take it from there. That's where I was. Then they won't feel slighted when we go through the budget process, what happened here?
Why is it gone?
Well, where's it gone? What did you guys do? What did you do? Well, if you did it with that, what else can you do this with? Can you all magically pull another rabbit out of your hat and come up with a truck for Public Works?
You're in
You know, I mean.
Getting in the budget discussion, you haven't gone through that cycle yet.
But it would be I just envision it, having a vote to create a special revolving fund, and it would be.
You still have to have that vote.
Honestly, I'm not
One way or
I'm
another,
not
whether you do
crazy
it now
about.
or later, you still have to have
Not
that vote.
necessarily, do you think so? I mean,
Yeah. I think-
hold on, if there was a non-profit that was
Oh.
started, I don't think you need a vote for that, then it's
I'm
just
not
be.
sure you want to go on the nonprofit.
Well, I don't know, I'm just saying, there are,
The
the way it was
reason-
explained to me is that there's a myriad of different ways you can set up GTV. One of them is a nonprofit where, and if I recall, one of the benefits to that was that we don't have to worry about censorship and all this other stuff, because the town of Goffstown is out of it.
Most
We don't have to
places
worry about
set them up
liability.
for that reason, okay? Nonprofits is set up to protect municipalities from liability
Right.
issues. However, that didn't prove the case in the current Manchester case. That was in Town and City. I don't know if you read that portion, but this mayor and the city, and the aldermen set up a nonprofit, and they named the board of directors, and then there was this hiring thing about who they hired as station coordinator. And the assistant to the previous one took them to court saying she wasn't hired by this board of directors. And
I remember that.
the decision was that Manchester couldn't give up its liability by assigning this and then picking the board of directors. So it did fall back on the city on that hiring practice. So they thought they were getting a cover for liability.
Well,
And
do
other
we know what
areas
other
like
communities do?
I think there's only 2 or 3 in the state of New Hampshire set up as nonprofits.
Okay. Like, what does a town like Bedford do? Do you know what Bedford does? I mean, they have a pretty
They contract
successful.
out. They contract out for the provision, but it comes under their budget. But they dedicate 100% of the cable franchise fees to the operation of the PIGS
Right.
station.
So is it safe to say, though, for the time being, we need to do something temporary then, while we're wrestling with this?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to name, or try to do something on a temporary basis to get us by till we make a decision as to what's the best route to go. I mean, do you need that authority? I mean, that's a non-public
Well, do you want me to
discussion?
post Dick's position 20 hours a week until, on a temporary basis, to take us through town meeting?
I like that idea.
That's the least we need to do.
Or
Yes.
check
Right,
if
it's the minimum.
current
Yeah.
staff
Minimum.
is
That's the minimum.
interested in putting in more hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's the minimum, but what's the next step if we want to go more than, if we want to go
If you want to
full-time?
expand this to a full-time position,
The easiest way of doing it
the easiest way.
right now, what would be the easiest way?
You'd be looking at another $20,000 out of your budget to get you to the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't have it.
And
No, nobody has that.
don't have that.
Right.
That
The
brings up
only
the whole
option
default
is the
issue.
whole
Right.
franchise agreement.
We're under default, yet you're adding new expenses.
Correct, that's what
And
Phil
then,
was saying.
right, but if you did the franchise way, then what you're decreasing is you're decreasing the revenues, not the, not increasing appropriations. I guess I'd like to talk to the auditor about doing it. When I first got here, it was set up, the total franchise fee was 3%. 2% came to the general fund, 1% went to GTV, and it was done on a liability fund for those years of that contract with United Cable. But I'm not sure a liability fund is really the appropriate method for dealing with the accounting of this size budget. It really
To
should
work
be a
out-
cable revolving
You
fund,
need,
which is a new
you need to
mechanism
work
of law.
out the financial ledger activities if the contract read 2%, 3% split.
Well, I
Or
think
what are the
that's clear.
options?
I think it's clear that you set it up as a cable revolving fund. That's what that legislation was, it specifically says cable as one of the options. So I think it's a cable revolving fund.
Okay, can I play devil's advocate? So we've had a police department that's asked for a revolving
Yeah,
fund for
I
years.
feel the same way,
And we're gonna
yes.
say, oh, no, we can't do that. And that clearly has a benefit in many respects, but yet, because we don't have the accounting
I
to
think
do
we'd have
it.
to do both. And it, like I said, we still don't have the finance software to do
Right.
it because it's a lot of work. Software can do anything, but it's labor intensive with our current finance software to be able to do
How
this.
did we do GTV before we put it through the budget?
Yeah, you held it in a liability fund.
Now, however, if you contracted it out, hypothetically,
It would be a line item in your budget.
and you'd make a series of payments, you wouldn't be worrying about X, Y, and Z and FICA and all the, we would just simply cut a check, whatever the terms are of that agreement, whether it's monthly or quarterly.
Not
No?
a lot of companies out there doing this.
Okay.
You're
Well,
not
Dick's
gonna have-
company was
Dick's-
doing it.
Dick's company's doing it in Nashua.
Yeah.
And the only bidder against him in Nashua was the city of Manchester.
Oh, okay.
Or not the city of Manchester, their PEG station, their nonprofit, also.
Can
bid
I
on
make
it.
a comment?
Please.
I'm sitting here, and I'm hearing things and some things, so I'm kind of like speaking what's going through loudly, what's going through my mind, okay? So I may hope, it sounds to me, from what I'm hearing here and the things that are going through here tonight, that we're looking for a full-time position. We had somebody that worked here, but because we didn't have a full-time position, wound up getting a job in Nashua. And now that they're got a full-time job in Nashua and they're not here, we're looking to make this full-time. It just seems that I don't know, that,
Based on his recommendation.
well,
And
I
Carol
understand, but I mean, the
Huxell's
guy's been here for 17 years. We don't give him a full-time position. He goes to Nashua, and now we're gonna make it a full-time position. It's just, when you stop and you think about it, is that sending a message? Is it a message we wanna send? I don't know, I'm just, like I said, I'm hearing this, and I'm thinking
I
out
don't look
loud.
at it as sending,
No.
I don't look at it as sending a message. I think it's trying to get it right. I don't have the answers. I don't.
Well, you don't have to make a decision tonight, I know, this wasn't on the
Aren't we
agenda.
supposed to be getting a recommendation from the committee?
I thought they were gonna take it up the other night, but during the first few minutes, there was a discussion and they tabled it till the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, in the time being though, you mentioned about posting it, et cetera. I mean, if we've got 2 or 3 individuals that want the extra hours and they already know our system and we need to get, we need to buy time,
So do
wouldn't
you
it-
want me to pursue the
I mean,
current staff to see if they
personally, I
can
would
put in
pursue
extra
current-
hours?
I would pursue current staff. They know it. I mean, I think bringing
They
somebody in from the
advertise.
outside.
Advertise the part-time position.
You wanna advertise the part-time or check
I mean,
with
that's,
staff?
that's what they're saying.
No,
No,
I'm
he's
saying
saying to check with current
solicit
staff.
from current staff.
If
There's
they're
only 2 or
available.
3 people that,
Okay.
So we had 2 or 3 part-timers on GTV?
We have there were
Three?
3 part-time positions, Dick's
Yeah.
included. So check with the other 2
right,
and
See if they wanna pick
volunteers.
up his hours.
Yeah.
right. They already know, they already know it. That's what I'm thinking.
That would be simple and quick.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, until a decision's made and going
Now, if they're not
forward.
amenable to it, then you have to
You have to
then you
post.
You
have to
post it and, look for somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yes, makes sense to me. Consensus of the board?
Okay.
Is it your sense that these other 2 would be interested in picking up the hours? I mean, do you have any
Andrew.
feel for that?
No,
That
don't go there, please.
And
One
the
has
other-
expressed an interest.
Okay.
Other question is, town administrator's gonna check with the auditor to
Right.
find out best way to
What are the
handle it.
options, right?
What are the options if we have the franchise fees split?
Nothing's easy.
No.
Okay. Now that's it.
Selectmen's discussion. Old business. Nothing on the agenda. Board members have anything?
How about guidance on the form to the churches in school?
Yeah.
Yes. You brought that up earlier.
I think as part of it, we need to convey to them that they need to demonstrate to us that they're providing a service that nobody else in town can provide. Because it doesn't do any good to say, well, we let the Boy Scouts meet here. Well, the Boy Scouts can meet any place. That's not specific to.
So you think it's, if Carl, if it was, what is the service that you're providing? Is there?
That's unique.
Right, yeah, that is unique. And could this, maybe the question is, could this service be satisfied elsewhere? Whether it be, like you said, a good point, like the Boy Scout, they could technically meet at a school or anywhere
Someone's
else.
house.
Right.
But one thing that came close was, I think it was the Villa said that there's a group that meets and that's the only venue
Or they
that's
can
large
change it,
enough
they were saying.
to accommodate them. Well, that to me is now getting towards a specific service they're providing that can't be provided by
Well,
others.
no.
Well, the high school's large enough, isn't it?
I don't know, I'm just saying, and I don't know that, I just heard that thrown out, but that's, leaning towards that sort of an argument.
But I don't know if, I understand about the scouts, because the scouts, now, first of all, though, do we have to differentiate between a official town of Goffstown organization, committee that meets there versus the scouts?
I thought, from legal opinion, I thought that was the A.
Yes, to me, it was, what
Fire
is,
department, police
what is the,
department?
does the town of Goffstown have a responsibility to provide for a scouting organization?
No.
We don't. So the fact that some other organization is sponsoring them to meet in their halls doesn't meet the standard of a requirement of the town. So it's nice that they're providing the services to the scouting organizations, but it's not an obligation of the town to support those scouting organizations.
Okay, so you wanna know what services are provided to town departments? How about, groups affiliated with town departments?
Does
like
Main Street
the
come under that?
Right.
I don't know.
Main Street, how about the Fire Association, Rescue Association,
Those are
the Police
CERT, those are
Association,
other
CERT.
nonprofit.
They're considered nonprofits?
Yeah.
But they're connected with the town directly, because
Do
we
they have a
support
budget?
Main Street.
Does the town supply them with a budget?
We fund Main Street, $20,000 a year. We, I don't think we fund the Police Association or the Fire Rescue
The
Association.
reason I'm asking the question, because from my understanding, we're talking about taxpayer dollars.
Mhm.
So if we're talking about taxpayer dollars, if it's any organization
That we fund,
that we fund,
that would
that
include
meets
Main
there,
Street then.
and I don't think it's necessary for the religious organization to determine whether or not they can meet someplace else. I don't think that's their obligation, to determine whether or not, oh, you can go meet
That would be
someplace
ours.
else.
Yeah.
That's
But
ours.
I don't know if that really becomes part of the issue, because whether or not, whether the police department or the fire department has a meeting there, and, oh, well, they could go meet at St. A's for, someplace else for free. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that they do meet there. And I could be
Well,
wrong.
you know what? I mean, I'll just show you my cards. I mean, there are certain things that I heard today that, I mean, I clearly think that, you know, that circular drive of the villa, I think that one, it's a public safety issue. We're not dropping kids off on Normand Road or, you know, on Mast Road.
So are
And it's a
they,
public school bus that's bringing them in. I mean, to me, that meets the litmus test. The fact that the Red Cross, the Boy Scouts, the Crispin's House, the Lions Club, or, you know, whatever, I don't necessarily think that meets the, you know, it is a need of the town. I don't
I
see
think
that.
that's what you're going to get into with your discussion. I think we need a list from them, and then you're going to identify what,
Right.
Right.
Okay.
right?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's what I see going there, because there's what the needs we're meeting, community needs we're meeting, we're gonna say, that's not a need. It's not a need, it's not a need, this one is. So, put a dollar value on it. So I guess the letter going out to them needs
Do
to be fairly.
I hear that they can make 2 columns of those services that provide for other community activities and hosting of community activities? But for them, and then a second column just for things that are required town activities. And, you know, that's the slender side. That's harder to define. The fire department has a requirement to annually test if they can do something at a 4th story.
Correct.
I don't know how to explain that.
Through certifications, and to maintain the certifications, we need to meet certain requirements of whether it be firefighter 1, firefighter 2, whatever certification we're working towards. And the only place in town is.
So they have to experience in real life
Correct.
what it is to operate on the 4th story
So
fire equipment.
my other question is, let's just say, for an example, the villa didn't have a fourth story. Would they then have to go to Manchester or another surrounding community to get that
We
certification?
brought that, we brought that up before, the only place, I mean, we could go to Manchester, we could go to the fire academy, the fire
right.
academy has a 5-story.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
there are other options, Scott.
Okay. No, because I think that was what council was saying, is that it's a need, but is it a need that could be satisfied elsewhere? You know, what's
Would
unique?
that other, probably a commercial building, would they say, yes, you can come train on the side of our building, but, you know, we'll charge you $500? Would,
I think we ought to, the letter ought to say, please provide us a list of services that you think satisfy or fulfills a community need. Then I think we're gonna have to define need and maybe give a couple of examples. Here's an example of what would constitute a community need. Here's one that doesn't. I mean, I think we need to give them enough guidance so that they're not just giving us garbage.
And that's what was
And
asked.
we don't have to review reams of stuff.
And that's what was asked for the guidance.
So what services fulfill a community need? Here's how we define a community need, and give an example of one that is a community need and one that isn't a community need. Community need is the public safety of our school children. Bill Augustina, safe drop-off, that's a community need. Meeting place for Boy Scouts, not a community need.
Do we want to use community need or public benefit, which
Well-
is used in the law?
it's the public
Is that what's used?
benefit.
Is that the
Public
term?
benefit.
And that's
Yes.
what we ought to use,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other question that I'm, you know, I know this came up by I'm trying to think, Pastor Bob, I think it was, maybe with the issue of, is this unique to snow plowing, or is this, I mean, is there any public benefit in terms of the trash and the recycling? Because we never really got our arms around that. I mean, certainly you're gonna make the safety issue. I mean, the villa one is, to me, is the no-brainer one of the kids getting dropped off in a safe environment, but picking up the garbage, where is that, incidental to the needs, you know, what was that?
Incidental and subordinate.
Insubordinate, where is that? There's no insubordinate, subordinate.
It's incidental in that, we're going right by there anyway.
Yes, but we go by the Historic Society.
Or we go by the Odd
Or
Fellows
we go by
laws.
the Odd Fellows, but we don't
Yeah.
give them a trash barrel. So yes, it's incidental to the route,
Right.
but we go by a lot of other places and don't provide trash services. Two of the organizations this evening said they hire commercial snow plowers. So extract that from the notes and,
Yeah, it was a Congregational Church in St.
St.
Matthews.
Matt's.
okay. Congregational.
We knew about
St.
the
Matt.
Congregational. That was news to me about St. Matthews.
But I would think that's sufficient information to get things rolling here.
And did that commercial plowing include the clothing, food activities?
But is that a need of the town?
No,
What
It's
do we
definitely,
plow? I thought we just plowed the church. Do
there's
we
there's
do the
definitely a
vestry
need
too?
for the town, but is it a town, I mean, the whole welfare thing is where, you know,
Mhm.
human assistant, I mean, that's where it's difficult. Because there's clearly, I mean, there's, you know, the Reverend
Dollars,
Exner
yeah.
said there's 170 households that partake in the food pantry, so there's obviously a need, but it is a need that is, and yet we are obligated by law as the safety net.
Yep,
That's why,
it
this
would-
is the one
it
where I'm
would-
totally confused on.
It would come to us.
Yeah, and if I can add,
Mhm.
in the past, boards of selectmen, you know how we get our budgets, recommendations from the department heads that come on with a budget? And I'm sure Sue can recall this. Welfare directors have come in with increases to the welfare line based on projections, based on other communities, and based on the amount of calls and what's projected to be for the budget. and boards of selectmen have looked at that and said, well, that's why we have the food pantry, that's why we have that, so you can cut that budget line, and if you look traditionally at our welfare line, I can, probably over the last 20 years, I don't think you're going to see that our welfare line has followed what the guidelines have been in other communities. Now, whether or not, how you can relate that to that, I don't know, but I can tell you that I voted to reduce that line by saying that we're gonna send people there. That's why we have that.
You know, the tough part of this whole thing is, that, let's use the Congregational Church as an example, where they really don't derive that much benefit, right, from the town?
No,
Because, okay.
we don't plow.
However, they're doing all of the same things that the others are.
But look at the difference on their park.
That's regardless. I'm just saying, and maybe I should have asked this question, but I highly doubt that if the town suspended the current arrangement, that these entities would no longer do some of the things that they're doing. They probably will. Now, will some of them enact a fee to use their facility? Probably. But is that what 99.9% of other parishes and local groups do? Yeah, that's what they do. But I think, you know, the difficulty is that I'm having a hard time separating, say, the Oddfellows Lodge, where I know that they host CERT dinners and CERT training and have different organizations meet there. We don't, and they have a budget to plow, and they pump all that money in to take care of that building. They gotta heat it, et cetera. But yet we're gonna say to another organization, you don't have to pay. When they all do, they all give, and give generously to the community. That's where I'm having a hard time reconciling it.
Well, can I ask this question? So, but if you go through process of elimination, from what I'm hearing, then out of the 5, we had 5 here?
5 or 6.
Oh, yeah, one.
5 was here, yeah. We didn't hear anything from the one that was in the.
Hillside did not come.
Hillside
Okay,
didn't come.
but how many did we have here?
They're in between pastors. How many we have here? 5.
We had out of the 5 that we have here, what I'm hearing is that 2 of them we don't plow.
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So out of that
Oh,
5.
no, 1 we don't plow. St. Matt's, we do a pass-through, but they hire a commercial plower.
Right.
But we do a pass-through for, there's a reason why we do, okay. Well, so eliminate 1, we're down to 4.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're down to 4 that were here.
And Hillside, we don't plow their private property, we plow the town parking lot.
Right, so that's a moot issue.
That's
not,
moot over there.
Right,
Hillside
okay.
is not in this.
Right, so, you're right, because we have the crypt back there and everything.
Right.
So we're down to what, 3?
Right,
We're down to 3. And that includes the villa?
right.
St. Lawrence?
No, wait, but the villa, what I'm hearing about the villa is a safety issue because of the school buses.
For the loop.
Well, they have a large parking lot in the back of their building.
I mean, their bulk of their cost is that large parking lot and the other parking lots. I mean, if you're just talking about it making a pass-through.
We don't do the back of the building, we do the loop and we do a Norman Road, right?
Okay. Yeah,
I think
so-
those are the 2 we do.
I don't know.
Over there.
So I go by elimination, so if you eliminated the villa, we're down to St. Lawrence and,
The one on Henry Bridge.
on Henry Bridge. Am I, is
And
that,
that person didn't say anything, so I don't know.
We do the Norman Road parking lot for the
Yeah,
villa?
we do.
That big parking lot?
Yeah.
Yep, we do.
At $130 a storm, which I find unbelievable, how that's possible. I mean, I can't fathom that would be that inexpensive. Do you? I mean, that's a lot.
It's all straight pushes, there's no obstacles to follow, yeah.
I pay that for the Historic Society, $130 a storm, for the Historic
Yeah,
Society.
and your parking lot is like 1/10 the size.
Right.
That's a commercial vendor though, right?
It's commercial.
Yeah,
water.
but still, I mean, I understand.
Carl has always maintained that it's much less expensive for the town.
sure it is. Insurance
We
is
don't
less.
pay taxes on
Overhead?
gasoline, there's 38 cents a gallon.
But still, it's like.
Yeah. No profit margin?
Yeah.
Right.
think all we're trying to do is frame the letter that goes out to the towns, and
You want a list of services which fulfill a public benefit and give an example of a public benefit being public safety of school children getting, students getting off the bus. But that a meeting place for Boy Scout would not be a public benefit as defined by the law. You also want them to know the value of that service on an annual basis,
yes.
service or facility.
I would do on a per use or annual basis, because they may say to rent.
Meeting, yeah,
Right.
or personal storm, yeah, but we're gonna do it on a per event too.
Okay.
Like Father Jerry mentioned something about, you know, that kids get picked up in this lot. And is that something, over time, it's something that became practice because parents could simply park there?
with the
But
kids,
is there,
keep them
is that a need?
What lot is that? I wasn't.
The
At
St.
St.
Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Oh.
On the
On
side
East
lot.
Union,
So-
on East Union.
It
Yeah.
sounds like it's an arrangement with the school, school district or their bus routes.
Yeah.
That some families can bring their children to a central parking lot
Yeah, you
to
could-
meet a bus.
You could put a public safety spin on that pretty easily.
Yep. And what I was surprised at too is, the principal from the villa talking about how the superintendent depends upon them if they have to evacuate Bartlett, that's where they go.
Research that one, please,
Hmm.
with the school district. Do other school buildings have an emergency evacuation to bring their students to other?
They all do. The plan for the school district uses all major facilities in the town of Goffstown. And St. A's is up there, they're all in it.
Oh, in the
But because there's a
meantime-
close partnership with the villa, obviously, the Bartlett School could easily go into Rosary Hall if
Right.
there was an issue. And because it's such a close partnership between the villa and the school district, it's a natural fit, you know.
Your emergency management plan might be a place to look at, because they may
That's where I
designate
was going, yep.
certain places might
They
be
do.
designated. an
But I think, you know,
emergency.
then the issue is this something that's typical, or are we gonna do this because it's an emergency plan? And I just don't know if that's an adequate.
Yeah, the emergency plans can identify public-owned buildings to meet those needs.
We've identified private ones.
Private,
in
oh,
the
yeah, private
Emergency
too.
I
management plan.
understand, but public buildings could serve that as well. I mean,
Yes, right.
The only point I was making is if you take a look at it, there might be some information as to why
Yeah.
the public say, or just a point of reference.
Okay.
You wanna have her draft that, and
Yeah.
then we'll have to take a look at that?
You want me to
Yeah.
just email it to you and?
Yes, to all of.
I mean, there's no doubt
I'll email
that
it, but you can't discuss it.
there's hundreds of.
Well,
Till the next meeting.
we'll just personally wordsmith it back to you.
I mean, there's no doubt that these groups, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being given back into the community. You know, there's no, I mean,
That's
that's,
not-
I don't,
Yeah, that's not,
that's not
the
the
issue.
issue.
yeah.
Right.
Any other old business? New business, we have a draft article for Historic District Commission. You've endorsed this one?
You put your blessing on it.
Phil endorses
Thank you.
it. We haven't.
Thank you for fulfilling our monthly obligations.
Who's next? Do we know?
Oh, I just turned off my computer.
You can,
Oh,
you can.
just send us a
you-
note.
You can thank my many helpers.
And wrapping up this evening, we have reports from the other committees in town. Starting off, the planning board.
Planning board did meet, and there were two things that they dealt with. And one of them was they approved the, trying to remember the exact name, Berger Cass,
Yeah, the vending, the truck.
Right,
That was-
something Burger Castle, I think. I don't remember what it was. It passes me.
In front of King Lanes.
Right, in front of King Lanes, that was approved, and the site plan they waived the site plan, and they waived a public hearing for that.
What are they doing? What is this vendor doing?
It's gonna be year-round,
fast
parked in
food,
front of,
So they need a permit from us.
hamburgers and,
Hawker, right?
We don't have a hawkers and
No.
peddlers license, ordinance in this town.
no, it's on private property, went through the planning board, so it wouldn't come underneath it.
Okay.
And then the other item was, a 4-family unit on, L'Oreal or Cross Street, that had approvals, but they weren't built. Everything met the conditions that the planning board put on the last time, and, it was just, reapproved. That was it. There was Lavalier, was the builder, was the owner.
So, just a quick, can I ask you a question on
Want
that?
clarification, go ahead.
Was there any discussion or debate over this food truck?
As far as what?
Parking, circulation.
Well, even if you're gonna go that whole route with parking and,
Well, they're-
right, but was there, I don't know, you guys know the whole planning board
No,
process
but-
more
but
than I do.
ask
I just
me-
I'm just thinking about it, like, if
Extension of the.
I'm any one of these businesses on South Mast, on Mast Road, that has experienced, say, difficulties between the construction, et cetera, and I'm saying to myself, so I'm, any restaurant, and I'm thinking to myself, I've been paying property taxes and this, and this, and
And
now.
I've done everything, I've
done
gone.
everything that I can, and
Yep.
now they're putting a food truck in a bowling alley parking lot, who's gonna now suck away money that I would have gotten for people to buy Chinese food and pizza and tacos. And now I'm getting competition from somebody who didn't have to lay out, didn't have to go through all these process and the
It's
pains
the
of.
makeup of the planning board. It's the current makeup of the
Scott.
planning board.
Scott, I brought that issue up.
Okay,
And the vote to waive that was a 4, it passed 4-3. Okay? I have a problem waiving the public hearing. I have a problem waiving that public hearing because of the fact you have, as you mentioned, you have another restaurant across the street who's done everything right. How many times did that owner come into the planning board to expand the parking lot, to address all the parking issues? Okay? The street that's Theophiled Street
yeah.
is, they talk about there's parking on Theophiled Street for that. Well, I said, well, wait a minute. You take Thursday night, Ollie's, okay? Thursday night's the specials. This place is gonna be open. Ollie's parking lot's full, Theophil's full, and whether or not the planning board, and this is exactly what I said, whether or not you want to admit it, King's parking lot is used for people that go to Ollie's on Thursday night. Now you're gonna have this here. You're gonna have no public hearing?
Oh, and then what happens? Are there gonna be picnic benches there? And then what's the next one? Then all of a sudden, we're gonna put a food truck,
But
across from the high
Scott,
school,
Scott,
or 2 food trucks.
Scott,
Or
then
not.
I'm shown waiving a site plan, and I'm shown parking on a thing, okay, that shows the 10-foot setback, where you're not supposed to have the parking from the 10-foot setback, but I am shown, the concrete bumpers that are going to be in front, and one of those, there's 3 of them, and the last one is partially beyond that setback. And we're gonna approve, I said, well, so wait a minute, so now we're gonna take that one concrete bumper, and it's gonna be packed, and we're gonna waive a site plan, and we're gonna allow this parking? And then it's brought up, well, there's even another one that's shown on here that doesn't have the bumper that's out in there. Well, all those are approved, I
don't know, I mentioned this a month or 2 ago when I saw that trailer that was selling the roses. And I'm saying to myself, Here you've got Apotheca, you've got Jacques Florist, you've got other folks who are paying a lot of money in taxes, a lot of overhead,
Hey.
and they're trying to make ends meet, and then we're gonna put and then not to mention that I don't think it all aesthetically looks all that great, and it creates traffic I mean, I don't know, it just doesn't seem
They're
right. to me.
regulated by the state.
Yeah.
It's not clear, it's not predictable. You have no idea
Right.
how the process is gonna go.
All right, sorry.
Okay, I tried to answer your question.
No, it's just,
That's why I said, ask the question, otherwise I'll go on all night long.
All that from a committee report.
So you listed under committee reports, all boards meeting. I'm sorry, I regard that as part of the selectmen's meeting. I'm not gonna summarize.
Okay.
We were all there anyway.
We were all there.
and
I
also,
think people are looking for some action to come out of that all boards meeting, that's what I heard that night, so, maybe at some other point we can
At some other point,
look at the all boards meeting
agenda
and
item.
see what came out of it and what direction.
make an extract of the minutes of that portion.
well, there was some discussion about the
Executive summary, all
super, you know,
documented.
the key players would get together, more often. That was something that came out of it too, that
Mhm.
town and school and budget, those type of people, but.
That's what we tried to do last year,
Oh, yeah.
but it didn't materialize.
Well, I mean, when we did, it didn't happen because we had competing.
Yeah, I know.
And department heads are working on their 2013 budgets, so, if
You
there's
look at-
going to be any
Look at this
discussion.
board, do we want to give up one Monday every 2 months? I don't know. We seem to be full. Just doing business as usual, let alone.
I wouldn't mind doing that.
I think we were discussing the July 30th, giving up that meeting.
Yes, are there any particular sessions in remainder of June or July we're in vacation season that the
Or
board
August.
might not want to have a quorum here?
July 30 was the one I'll be gone to, so.
I'm gone July 30th. That's 2 of us.
Scratch that meeting.
Well, I think we only get 3 or 5 here. I don't think that's a good way to do business. I think we need at least 4.
What do you think?
Scrap it.
Okay. No selectmen's meeting, 30 July,
We'll have to come in and sign the forms though, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
Yes.
always have to do that.
unless, in my case, I'm out of state, so the rest of you can.
Me too.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Paula's got it in there.
Yep, Collis got in there.
Motion by
He's
Scott,
younger and
second by
quicker.
Colin.
Those in favor? Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
They're voting with their feet. They're standing up. They're going.